I pressed my ear against the kitchen door when I heard my name. Dad's voice cut through the silence. Sarah gets everything. The house, the business, the investments. Lucy. She's not getting a single thing. Mom's laughter followed sharp and cruel. She never deserved it anyway. My hands trembled as I watched them toast with champagne through the crack. 28 years of being their daughter, and they'd already written me out of existence. I backed away silently, my mind racing with one thought. Tonight everything changes. The grandfather clock in the hallway chimed midnight as I slipped into my father's study. My hands shook as I pulled open the mahogany drawer where he kept his most important documents. The familiar scent of his cigars mixed with leather filled my nostrils, bringing back memories of when I used to sit on his lap as a little girl, believing I was his precious daughter. What I found shattered that illusion forever. Sarah Morrison, Sarah Morrison, Sarah Morrison. Every document, every deed, every investment account bore my older sister's name. The family construction business I'd poured my soul into for 5 years, growing it from $2 million to $15 million, Sarah Morrison, sole beneficiary. The house where I'd taken my first steps, Sarah Morrison, future owner. Even the vintage Mustang grandfather had promised me before he died was already transferred to Sarah's name. My fingers froze on a manila folder tucked behind the others. The label read, Confidential, 1999. Inside, I found papers that made my blood run cold. Adoption certificate, Lucy Ann Morrison, adopted by William and Margaret Morrison. Date of adoption, March 15th, 1999. I was 3 years old. 25 years of lies unfolded before me. Every birthday celebration, every Christmas morning, every family portrait hanging on these walls, all of it built on a foundation of deception. They knew. They'd always known I wasn't really theirs, and they'd never told me. I photographed every document with my phone, my mind racing to process this revelation. Sarah had always been the golden child, that much was true. Harvard MBA engaged to Brandon Whitfield from the prestigious law firm, president of the country club's charity board. But I'd never understood the depth of my parents' favoritism until now. Page after page revealed the systematic erasure of my contributions. The Henderson Plaza project that I'd negotiated saving the company $800,000, credited to Sarah in the board minutes. The innovative scheduling system I'd implemented that cut costs by 30%, Sarah's achievement, according to the annual report. Every late night, every weekend, every holiday I'd sacrificed for Morrison Construction had been attributed to my sister, who hadn't stepped foot in the office more than twice a year. The clock read 2 in the morning when I finally found what I was looking for buried in the bottom drawer. Financial statements, bank accounts, investment portfolios. The family fortune laid bare in black and white. But something was wrong with the numbers. Money was moving in strange patterns, large transfers to accounts I didn't recognize. I spread the papers across my father's desk using the skills I'd honed as a financial analyst to trace the flow of funds. What emerged was a pattern of systematic fraud that went back years. Morrison Construction was being hollowed out from the inside, its assets transferred piece by piece to offshore accounts and shell companies. My phone buzzed, a text from Sarah. "Where are you? Noticed your car is still here. Everything okay?" Even now, even at 2 in the morning, she was keeping tabs on me. I typed back, "Couldn't sleep, going for a drive." Let her think I was having another one of my insomnia episodes. She'd probably report it to our parents over breakfast, more evidence that I was the unstable daughter who couldn't handle responsibility. I carefully returned most of the documents to their original positions, keeping only the photos on my phone. As I closed the drawer, another memory surfaced. Last month, Dad had asked me to review some contracts while he was recovering from his back surgery. He'd given me power of attorney to handle business matters during his recovery. In the chaos of his return to work, no one had remembered to revoke it. I still had legal access to every Morrison Construction account. The weight of what I'd discovered pressed down on me as I stood in his study. This wasn't just favoritism or family dysfunction. This was calculated betrayal on a scale I'd never imagined. They weren't just cutting me out of the will. They were erasing me from the family history entirely. But they'd made one crucial mistake. They'd underestimated me. They saw the quiet daughter who always helped, always sacrificed, always put family first. They didn't see the financial analyst who could read patterns in numbers like others read words. They didn't see the woman who'd learned to build empires from spreadsheets and contracts. As I turned off the study light and crept back to my room, I thought about the champagne toast I'd witnessed hours earlier. My parents celebrating my disinheritance with such joy, such satisfaction. Mom's smile as she'd said, "I never deserved anything anyway." Tomorrow they'd sit at the breakfast table with their biological daughter discussing her bright future built on my work. They'd smile their false smiles at me, secure in their secret plans. But tomorrow I would begin my own plans, because while they were busy writing me out of the family legacy, they'd forgotten one crucial detail. I knew where all the bodies were buried, and I still had the shovel. The next morning arrived too quickly. I'd barely slept, my mind churning through financial records and adoption papers. At breakfast, I forced myself to spread butter on my toast with steady hands while Dad read the business section and Mom fussed over Sarah's wedding preparations. "Lucy, you look terrible." Mom observed her voice carrying that false concern she'd perfected over the years. "Those bags under your eyes are getting worse. Maybe you should see someone about your sleep issues." "I'm fine." I managed taking a sip of coffee that tasted like ash in my mouth. "She's always fine," Sarah interjected, scrolling through her phone. "Our Lucy, the family workhorse. Speaking of which, I need you to handle the Riverside project presentation tomorrow. Brandon and I have a cake tasting." Any other day, I would have agreed immediately. Today, I simply nodded, studying my sister's face. Had she always looked at me with such casual dismissal? Had I been too eager to please to notice? "Actually," Dad said, folding his newspaper, "I need Lucy at the office early today. We're reviewing the quarterly reports." I knew those reports by heart. I'd prepared them, but I stood grateful for the excuse to leave. "I'll head over now." The Morrison Construction headquarters occupied a gleaming 6-story building on the business district's main street. I'd been part of selecting this location, negotiating the purchase, overseeing the renovation. Now, according to the documents I'd found, I'd never have a claim to a single square foot of it. I locked my office door and pulled up the company financial systems. The power of attorney documents were still valid, still granting me full access. My fingers flew across the keyboard as I dug deeper into the web of transactions I'd glimpsed the night before. What I found made my stomach turn. Over the past 18 months, my parents had been systematically draining Morrison Construction. Legitimate contracts were being inflated with the excess routed to accounts in the Cayman Islands. Equipment purchases were being double billed with phantom invoices paid to companies that existed only on paper. But the worst discovery came when I accessed an encrypted folder on the shared drive. Email exchanges between my parents and Sarah dating back 6 months. They weren't just planning to cut me out. They were planning to destroy everything grandfather had built. Phase 1 complete. Sarah had written 3 months ago. "Marcus confirms the offshore structures are ready. We can begin aggressive extraction after the Wagner project closes." Marcus Chen, Dad's business partner and longtime friend, the man who'd taught me to read construction blueprints when I was 15. He was in on it too. The emails laid out their plan in devastating detail. They would siphon out every liquid asset, leverage the company to the maximum, then declare bankruptcy. The timeline showed they planned to file in exactly 72 hours. 47 employees would lose their jobs. Dozens of small contractors who depended on us would go unpaid. Pension funds would evaporate. My hands trembled as I read Sarah's casual discussion of destroying lives. The employees should have saved more personally, not our problem. I screenshot everything, uploading it to multiple secure cloud servers. Then I saw it. A thread from last week. "Lucy's getting suspicious," Mom had written. She asked about the Henderson account discrepancies. "Don't worry," Sarah had replied. "After Friday, she won't be able to cause any problems. I've already drafted the termination letter. We'll frame it as embezzlement if she tries to fight back." They were planning to fire me and accuse me of stealing, the very crime they were committing. My phone rang. Emma Chen, no relation to Marcus, thankfully, my best friend since college and now a senior associate at Whitfield Frost and Associates. Ironically, she worked at the same firm as Sarah's fiancé, though in the corporate law division rather than Brandon's criminal defense department. "Hey, Lucy, want to grab lunch? You sound stressed in your text last night." "Emma," I said, my voice barely steady, "I need your help. Can you meet me somewhere private, not the office?" "That's serious. Okay, how about the reading room at the university library? No one uses it during summer break." An hour later, I sat across from Emma in the dusty quiet of the empty library, watching her expression shift from concern to shock to fury as she reviewed the evidence. Lucy, this is massive corporate fraud. Federal crimes. They're looking at serious prison time if this comes out. If I asked, "When?" Emma corrected herself. "You have to report this. But Lucy, you need to protect yourself first. That power of attorney. It's your shield right now, but it could also be turned against you. They could claim you were part of the scheme." "What do I do?" Emma's legal mind was already working. "First, we secure the assets. You have legal authority to move money to protect the company's interests. We create a trust account, transfer the liquid assets there to prevent the bankruptcy. It's completely legal, as long as you're acting to protect creditors and employees. How long do I have?" "Based on these emails, less than 72 hours. But Lucy," she leaned forward, her voice urgent. "Once you do this, there's no going back. Your family will know it was you." I thought about 25 years of being the outsider without knowing it. 25 years of pouring love into people who toasted my disinheritance with champagne. "They're not my family," I said quietly. "Apparently they never were." Emma squeezed my hand. "Yes, they are. Family isn't just blood. It's the people who stand by you. And right now, that includes me. Let's save your grandfather's company." We spent the next 3 hours crafting a legal strategy. Emma called in favors from law school friends, setting up the trust structure that would protect Morrison Construction's assets. As the sun set outside the library windows, I realized I was about to declare war on the only family I'd ever known. But they'd fired the first shot. They just didn't know I'd heard it. That night, I returned home to find my parents and Sarah in the living room laughing over photo albums, pictures of family vacations, holidays, milestones. In every photo, I stood slightly apart, like I was edited in after the fact. Now I understood why. "Lucy," Dad called out, "come look at these old pictures. Remember this trip to Yellowstone?" I remembered. I was 12, and I'd gotten lost on a trail for 3 hours. When they finally found me, Mom had been furious about the delay it caused to their dinner reservations. Sarah had complained the entire ride back about missing the pool hours at the hotel. "I'm tired," I said. "Think I'll turn in early." "Good idea," Mom said, not looking up from the album. "You need to stop staying up so late. It's aging you." I climbed the stairs to my room, the smallest bedroom I noticed now tucked away at the end of the hall like an afterthought. In less than 12 hours, I would begin the process of saving Morrison Construction and everyone who depended on it. They thought they were cutting me out of the family fortune. They had no idea I was about to show them exactly what this adopted daughter was worth. My alarm never went off because I never slept. At 2 a.m, I slipped out of the house like a shadow driving through the empty streets toward Morrison Construction headquarters. The building stood dark against the sky, a monument to 3 generations of hard work that my parents were preparing to demolish for profit. The security guard's booth glowed with soft light. Robert Williams had worked night security for 15 years, ever since his wife's medical bills forced him to take a second job. I'd helped his daughter Maria with her college applications last year, writing recommendation letters that helped her get into State University's engineering program. Miss Lucy Roberts stood as I approached, concern creasing his weathered face. "Everything all right? You're here awful early, even for you." "Just need to handle some urgent paperwork," I said, forcing a smile. "Big presentation tomorrow." He buzzed me in without question. Trust. Something my family had never truly given me, freely offered by a man who worked nights to pay for his wife's cancer treatments. The executive floor felt different in the darkness. I moved through the halls I'd walked thousands of times past the conference rooms, where I'd pitched ideas that built this company's value toward the servers that held our financial future. I logged into the system with my credentials, my power of attorney documentation ready if challenged by any digital safeguards. The accounts opened before me like a map of betrayal. $3.2 million sat in the operational accounts, money meant for payroll contractor payments and equipment purchases. By Friday, my parents planned to drain every cent. My fingers moved across the keyboard with practiced precision. First, I created the trust account Emma and I had established, naming it the Morrison Construction Employee Protection Trust. Then, transfer by transfer, I began moving the money. Each transaction meticulously documented, every dollar accounted for, all of it legal, under my authority to protect the company's interests. As the progress bars crawled across my screen, I heard footsteps in the hallway. My heart hammered as I minimized the windows, pulling up a presentation file just as the door opened. Robert stood there with a cup of coffee. "Thought you might need this. You look like you're settling in for a long one." "You're a lifesaver," I said, accepting the warm cup gratefully. He lingered in the doorway. "Miss Lucy, can I ask you something?" "Of course." "There have been rumors, people saying the company's in trouble. My pension, the other guy's pensions. They're safe, right?" The weight of 47 families pressed on my shoulders, men and women who'd built their futures on the Morrison name, never knowing the Morrisons were preparing to abandon them. "Robert," I said carefully, "have I ever lied to you?" "No, ma'am. You've always been straight with us." "I'm not going to start now. There are challenges ahead, but I promise you this. I will do everything in my power to protect every employee of this company, every pension, every job, everything." He studied my face in the dim light from the hallway. "You know, when Maria got into college, she said something. Said you were the only Morrison who ever treated us like family instead of staff. I believe you, Miss Lucy. Whatever you're doing here at 2 a.m, I believe you're doing it for us." After he left, I returned to the transfers. Another window caught my eye. The security system. Every keystroke, every access, every movement through the building was being recorded. By morning, there would be a detailed digital trail of my activities. I thought about deleting the footage, but that would raise more suspicions. Instead, I continued working, knowing that by dawn my parents would have all the evidence they needed to accuse me of theft. Let them. Emma had assured me that protecting assets from fraudulent bankruptcy was not only legal but required of someone in a fiduciary position. By 4 a.m, the transfers were complete. $3.2 million now sat safely in trust accounts protected from my parents' pillaging. But I wasn't done. I accessed the contractor payment system, accelerating every legitimate payment owed. If Morrison Construction was going down, it wouldn't take innocent small businesses with it. As I worked, I discovered more evidence of the conspiracy. Purchase orders for equipment that didn't exist. Service contracts with shell companies registered to variations of Sarah's name. A web of deceit that would have made grandfather weep. 5:30. The sky outside began to lighten. Early morning employees would start arriving soon. I printed copies of every transaction I'd made, creating a paper trail that would protect me and expose them. As the printer hummed, I noticed something odd in the employment records. 47 employees, but the payroll showed payments to 63 people, 16 ghost employees drawing full salaries and benefits to accounts that traced back to, I shouldn't have been surprised, Sarah Morrison. My sister wasn't just complicit, she was running her own theft operation within the larger fraud. I gathered my printed documents backing up everything to multiple secure drives. As I prepared to leave, my computer chimed with a new email from Marcus Chen sent to my parents and Sarah. Not to me, of course, but the company email system still showed me everything. Accelerated timeline necessary. Lucy accessed the buildings at 2 a.m. Robert confirmed. Moving forward with phase 2 immediately. They knew. They'd been watching me all along. I grabbed my documents and drives, racing for the exit. In the parking lot, Robert's security booth was empty. A sick feeling twisted my stomach as I realized the truth. Robert hadn't stumbled upon me by accident. He'd been checking on me, making sure I was alone, confirming their suspicions. But why the coffee? Why the kind words about Maria? I found my answer when I reached my car. Tucked under the windshield wiper was a handwritten note. They offered me money to report on you. I took it. Maria's tuition is due, but I didn't tell them about the transfers, just that you were here. Pension or no pension, you're the only Morrison who ever gave a damn. Be careful, R. I sat in my car as the sun rose over the city, holding Robert's note. He'd risked everything to give me a few hours head start. A security guard making $15 an hour had shown more loyalty to me than my own family. My phone buzzed, 7 messages from Sarah, 3 from Mom, 5 from Dad. I didn't need to read them to know what they said. The war had begun, and they'd just realized I'd fired the first shot. I drove home through the morning traffic past the coffee shops and breakfast places where normal families were starting normal days. At a red light, I caught sight of my reflection in the mirror. Same brown eyes, same determined chin, same high cheekbones as always. But now I saw what they'd always seen. A face that didn't quite match the family portraits a genetic stranger they'd been forced to tolerate. The house was in chaos when I arrived. Dad paced the living room phone, pressed to his ear, shouting at someone about unauthorized transfers. Mom sat at the kitchen table laptop, open, her face pale with fury. Sarah stood by the window, perfectly dressed as always, but her hands shook as she typed on her phone. They all turned when I walked in. Lucy. Dad's voice was deadly calm, the eye of the hurricane. We need to talk about your late-night visit to the office. I set my purse down, carefully meeting his eyes. Yes, I said simply, we do. For the first time in 28 years, I wasn't the grateful adopted daughter. I wasn't the helpful sister or the dedicated employee. I was the woman who'd just saved 47 families from financial ruin. And they all knew it. Sit down, Dad commanded, pointing to the living room couch like I was a misbehaving child. I remained standing. I'll stand, thanks. Mom's fingers flew across her laptop keyboard. 3.2 million, William. She moved 3.2 million. I secured company assets in a protection trust, I said calmly, as was my fiduciary duty under the power of attorney you granted me. Sarah laughed, but there was no humor in it. Fiduciary duty you stole from us. Interesting choice of words, Sarah. I pulled out my phone, scrolling to the screenshots. Speaking of stealing, can you explain the 16 ghost employees on our payroll, the ones whose salaries go directly to accounts under your name? The room went silent. Sarah's perfectly composed mask slipped for just a moment, revealing something ugly underneath. I don't know what you're talking about, she said. Really? So you don't know about Maria Sanderson, the fictional marketing manager making $80,000 a year, or James Patterson, not the author, of course, our non-existent site supervisor. Mom stood up, her face flushed. How dare you access those records? How dare I felt 28 years of suppressed anger rising. How dare you plan to destroy grandfather's company? How dare you steal from employees who trusted us? How dare you toast with champagne while plotting to leave me with nothing? You were never supposed to hear that, Dad said quietly. No, I was never supposed to know any of it, including the fact that I'm adopted. The silence that followed felt like a physical weight. Sarah's eyes darted between our parents, and I realized she'd known all along. Of course she had. When were you going to tell me? I asked. Or was that another secret you planned to take to your graves? It wasn't relevant, Mom said coldly. We raised you, fed you, educated you. You should be grateful. Grateful. I tasted the word like poison. Tell me when you were teaching me to be grateful, was that before or after you started crediting all my work to Sarah? The doorbell rang, cutting through the tension. Sarah answered it, and my stomach dropped when Brandon walked in. Her fiancé, the criminal defense lawyer, dressed in his $1,000 suit with his briefcase in hand. Lucy, he nodded professionally. I'm here in my capacity as the family's legal counsel. Since when do you represent the family? I asked. Since 5 minutes ago, Sarah said, wrapping her arm through his. Brandon's going to handle this little situation. Brandon set his briefcase on the coffee table with practiced precision. Lucy, what you've done constitutes theft. Return the money now and we can handle this privately. Continue this path and we'll have no choice but to involve law enforcement. I studied Brandon's face. Harvard Law, top of his class, youngest partner at Whitfield Frost and Associates. Also the man who'd been dating my sister for 3 years and still hadn't noticed she was embezzling from the company. Brandon, I said slowly, did Sarah tell you about her interesting payroll additions? His brow furrowed. What payroll additions? Brandon, don't listen to her, Sarah interjected quickly. She's trying to deflect from her own crimes. But I saw it. The flicker of doubt in his eyes. Brandon was many things, but he wasn't stupid. Before you threaten me with law enforcement, I continued, you might want to review the employee records, specifically the ones Sarah manages. You know, as head of human resources. Sarah's grip on Brandon's arm tightened. She's lying. She's always been jealous of me. Jealous? I pulled up the evidence on my phone. Brandon, I'm sending you something. Just look at it, for your own sake. His phone chimed. I watched his face as he read, saw the color drain from his perfect complexion. His eyes lifted to meet Sarah's. 16 fake employees. His voice was barely a whisper. Brandon, baby, I can explain. $900,000 a year in fraudulent payroll. His professional composure cracked. Sarah, this is federal wire fraud, multiple counts. Dad stepped forward. Brandon, you work for us now, attorney-client privilege. No. Brandon stepped away from Sarah, his hands shaking. I can't be party to this. Sarah, is this real? Sarah's mask finally shattered completely. You don't understand, it was temporary. I was going to pay it back after we restructured the company. Restructured. Brandon's voice rose. You mean after the bankruptcy? Sarah, that's not restructuring, that's... He stopped, his legal mind catching up. Oh my God, you're planning a fraudulent bankruptcy. Brandon, please. Sarah reached for him, but he backed away. I need to think, he said, gathering his briefcase. I can't be here. Brandon, Sarah called after him, but he was already at the door. He paused, turning back to look at me. Lucy, I had no idea about any of it. I'm sorry. Then he was gone, leaving Sarah standing in the doorway like a statue. When she turned back to us, her perfect composure had transformed into something feral. You ruined everything, she hissed at me. I ruined everything. I laughed, but it came out broken. You've been stealing for who knows how long. You're having an affair with Marcus Chen. What? The word exploded from Dad. Sarah, you're not with Marcus. Sarah's face went white. In her rage, she'd forgotten our parents didn't know about that piece of the puzzle. Oh, I said softly. They didn't know about Marcus. Brandon told me yesterday, but I guess he found out before them. Mom sank into her chair. Sarah, tell me that's not true. Marcus is married. He's your father's business partner. Marcus understands me, Sarah said defensively. He sees my vision for the company. Your vision. Dad's voice was dangerous now. What vision involves stealing from your own family's business? Our family's business, Sarah laughed wildly. Lucy's not even family. She's some random kid you felt guilty about taking in. I'm your real daughter. I deserve everything. The words hung in the air like shattered glass. Even my parents looked shocked at the venom in her voice. I built my whole life around being the perfect daughter. Sarah continued, her carefully styled hair coming loose. Perfect grades, perfect college, perfect engagement. And for what? So you could give half of everything to her. She pointed at me. The charity case? Sarah, Mom said weakly, you're upset. You don't mean... I mean every word. Do you know what it's like growing up with St. Lucy? Always so helpful, always so dedicated. Why can't you be more like your sister, Sarah? Well, I found my own way to get what I deserved. By stealing, I asked. By betraying Brandon, by planning to destroy 47 families who did nothing wrong. By taking what's mine, Sarah screamed. All of it should be mine. I'm the real Morrison. Her phone rang. Marcus's name flashed on the screen. She answered it, turning away from us. What do you mean the transfers won't go through? Her voice was panicked. The trust is locked. How is that possible? She listened, her face growing paler with each word. When she hung up, she looked like she'd seen a ghost. The FBI, she whispered. Someone reported the ghost employees to the FBI. They're freezing all the accounts. Everyone turned to look at me. I didn't report anything, I said truthfully, yet. But I had a pretty good idea who did. Brandon Whitfield, ethical lawyer and scorned fiancé, had just discovered his future wife was a federal criminal. He'd done what any officer of the court was required to do. Sarah sank onto the couch. Her designer dress wrinkled her perfect life, unraveling thread by thread. This isn't happening, she muttered. This isn't how it was supposed to go. Mom moved toward her, then stopped, caught between her two daughters. One biological one adopted both disappointments in different ways. Dad stood, frozen phone in hand, probably calculating how quickly this would spiral beyond their control. The grand plan to gut Morrison Construction and retire rich had just collapsed, brought down by the daughter they'd written off. I'm going to my apartment, I said, heading for the door. Emma Chen is my attorney. Any further communication can go through her. Lucy, wait, Dad called out, but I didn't stop. As I reached my car, I heard the sound of sirens in the distance. They might be heading anywhere, but somehow I didn't think so. The war I'd started at 2 a.m. had just claimed its first casualties, and we were only getting started. The drive to my apartment gave me 20 minutes to process what had just happened. Sarah's mask hadn't just slipped. It had shattered completely, revealing years of resentment and entitlement that ran deeper than I'd imagined. But as I pulled into my building's garage, my phone lit up with calls from 5 numbers I recognized immediately. James McCready, our senior foreman. Angela Torres, head of accounting. David Kim, project manager. Susan Walsh, office manager. And Thomas Rivera, our chief estimator. These weren't just employees. These were the people who'd built Morrison Construction alongside me, working 60-hour weeks to meet deadlines, sacrificing weekends to save projects. I answered James's call first. Lucy, thank God. His gravelly voice carried 20 years of construction sites. We need to talk, all of us. Can you meet? Where? Murphy's Tavern, back room, 1 hour. Murphy's wasn't a Morrison Construction hangout. It was a blue-collar bar 5 miles from the office where management never went. Smart choice. I arrived to find them already assembled around a scarred wooden table. 5 faces that had shaped my understanding of what Morrison Construction really was. Not the glossy corporate image my parents projected, but the sweat and dedication of people who built things that mattered. Sit, Angela said, pouring coffee from a thermos. You look like hell. Thanks, I managed a weak smile. It's been a morning. We know about the transfers, David said quietly. The trust account. Protecting the assets. My stomach tightened. How? Lucy. Susan leaned forward. We've known something was wrong for months. Angela noticed the strange transactions. David caught the inflated contracts. Thomas saw the equipment that never arrived. We've been documenting everything. Angela pulled out a thick folder. 18 months of evidence. Every suspicious payment, every ghost invoice, every shell company. We didn't know what to do with it until today. Why didn't you come to me sooner? I asked. Because we thought you might be part of it, James said bluntly. You're a Morrison. But when Robert called me at 5 this morning, told me what you did. He shook his head. No one planning to steal money protects it in an employee trust. I stared at the folder. You've been investigating my family. We've been protecting ourselves, Thomas corrected. 47 families depend on this company. When money starts disappearing, we notice. There's more, Susan said. She pulled out an envelope yellowed with age. Your grandfather gave this to James before he died. Said to only open it if the company faced bankruptcy. James slid the envelope to me. I think we're there. My hands trembled as I broke the wax seal. Grandfather's handwriting, shaky but determined, filled 3 pages. But it was the attached document that stopped my breath. A codicil to the original company charter properly notarized and witnessed. In the event of bankruptcy proceedings, ownership would automatically transfer to Lucy Ann Morrison, my true heir in spirit, if not in blood. He knew, I whispered. He knew I was adopted. Read the letter, Angela urged. My dearest Lucy, if you're reading this, then my worst fears have come true. My son has chosen greed over honor, and Morrison Construction faces its darkest hour. I've watched you grow from that scared 3-year-old Patricia brought to our door to a woman of integrity and strength. Blood doesn't make family. Character does. You've shown more dedication to our legacy than William ever has. The attached document is my failsafe. I had Judge Harrison draft it secretly after I noticed the first signs of William's greed. It supersedes all other claims and cannot be contested if properly executed during bankruptcy proceedings. You are not my granddaughter by blood, but you are my chosen heir. Save our company. Save our people. Be the Morrison I always knew you could be. All my love, grandfather. Tears blurred my vision. Even from beyond the grave, grandfather was still protecting me. There's a catch, David said gently. The codicil only activates during formal bankruptcy proceedings. Your parents have to actually file, which they were planning to do in 72 hours, I said. Except now the FBI is involved thanks to Brandon. About that, Angela pulled out her phone. I may have sent Brandon an anonymous tip about the ghost employees an hour before he showed up at your parents' house. Figured a lawyer would know what to do with it. I stared at her. You're the reason he turned on Sarah. I gave him information. His conscience did the rest. She shrugged. Man's got ethics, rare in a lawyer. So what now? Thomas asked. Your parents know you're onto them. The FBI's sniffing around. Sarah's imploding. Where does that leave us? It leaves us with a choice, I said, looking at each of them. We can wait for this to play out in court, probably lose everything in legal fees and hope some pieces survive. Or James prompted. Or we take control now. You've all been here 15 years or more. You own stock options, small percentages, but together... Susan did the math quickly. Together we own 12%. Your 5% makes 17. We'd need 51 for control. Unless, I said slowly, other employees exercise their options too. The room went quiet as the implication sank in. You want to rally the troops, James said. Stage a takeover. I want to save Morrison Construction, I corrected. The company grandfather built. The one that employed your fathers and mothers, the one that puts 47 kids through college and keeps 47 families secure. The employees' stock options are locked for another year, Angela pointed out. Standard vesting period. I smiled for the first time all day. Unless the company faces imminent bankruptcy. Page 43 of the employee handbook, a clause I wrote. Immediate vesting in case of financial crisis to protect employee interests. You planned for this, David asked. I planned for something. I never imagined it would be my own family causing the crisis. Thomas stood up. I'm in. 22 years I've given to Morrison Construction. I'm not letting them destroy it. One by one, they all stood. Angela, David, Susan. Finally, James, who'd been with the company since before I was born. Your grandfather hired me when I was 19, he said. Gave me a chance when no one else would. I'll be damned if I let his son destroy what we built. What do you need us to do? Call everyone, I said. Every employee with stock options. We meet tomorrow night, and James see if Robert Williams wants to join us. I have a feeling he's reconsidering his loyalties. What about your aunt? Susan asked suddenly. Patricia. Your grandfather mentions her in the letter. I froze. What do you know about Patricia? Just that she used to work here. Left about 20 years ago. Your grandfather never said why, but he kept her photo in his desk drawer. Always seemed sad when he looked at it. Patricia Morrison. Another piece of the puzzle I hadn't known existed. I'll find her, I said. If she's still alive? Oh, she's alive, Angela said. She sends a Christmas card to the office every year. Never a return address, but the postmarks are from Seattle. Seattle. 3 hours away. Close enough to watch from a distance, far enough to stay hidden. As we prepared to leave, James pulled me aside. Lucy, what you're doing? It's dangerous. Your parents won't go down without a fight. They should have thought of that before they decided I was expendable, I said. That's not what I mean. I mean, be careful. Desperate people do desperate things. And right now, your parents are looking at federal prison. He was right. I'd backed them into a corner, and cornered animals were the most dangerous. But as I looked around the table at these 5 people who'd risked everything to gather evidence, who'd chosen loyalty to the company over comfort, I knew I wasn't alone. Grandfather had left me more than documents and legal loopholes. He'd left me an army. Same time tomorrow, Angela asked as we filed out. Same time, I confirmed. And Angela, thank you, all of you. Don't thank us yet, she said. We haven't won anything. But as I drove home through the afternoon traffic, I felt something I hadn't experienced in years. Hope. Real, tangible hope. The Morrisons had tried to bury me. They'd forgotten I knew how to dig. My phone rang as I entered my apartment. Unknown number, Seattle area code. My heart skipped. Hello. Lucy. The voice was feminine, cautious, carrying an edge of something I couldn't identify. This is Patricia. I think it's time we talked. I sank onto my couch. How did you know? Angela Torres called me an hour ago. Said you found Daddy's letter. A pause. I've been waiting 20 years for this call. Can we meet? I'm already on my way. Flight lands at 6. Lucy, there are things you need to know. Things about your parents, about Sarah, about who you really are. The line went dead. 3 hours until answers I'd waited a lifetime to hear. I used the time to research Patricia Morrison. The internet revealed little. A LinkedIn profile showing she ran a consulting firm in Seattle, some charity work, a few professional headshots. But the Morrison Construction Archives told a different story. Patricia had been the heir apparent. VP of Operations at 25, innovative, brilliant, beloved by employees. Then suddenly nothing. She vanished from company records in 2004, the same year I was 7. Every photo removed, every mention scrubbed. Soviet-style erasure. At 5:30, I drove to the airport. I didn't know what Patricia looked like now, but I needn't have worried. The woman waiting at arrivals looked like an older version of me. Same brown eyes, same determined chin, same way of standing like she was ready for a fight. My God, she breathed when she saw me. You look just like her. Like who? Like your mother. My best friend. The woman my brother destroyed. We drove to a quiet restaurant in the suburbs, one of those places with dim lighting and discreet booths. Patricia ordered wine. I stuck with coffee. My hands were already shaking. Her name was Caroline. Patricia began without preamble. Caroline Foster. We met in college. She was studying social work, I was in business. Smartest woman I ever knew. Kind too. The sort of person who'd give you her last dollar if you needed it. She pulled out a faded photograph. A young woman with my eyes smiled at the camera holding a baby. That's you, Patricia said softly. 3 months old. She loved you more than life itself. What happened to her? Patricia's face hardened. William happened. My brother. He was married to Margaret, had been for 2 years. But marriage vows never meant much to him. He met Caroline at a company party I brought her to, charmed her, pursued her relentlessly. She didn't know he was married. I made sure never to mention it because I thought it was just harmless flirtation. The wine arrived. Patricia took a long sip before continuing. When Caroline found out she was pregnant, she went to William. He laughed, told her to take care of it, and threw money at her. She refused, said she wanted the baby, you. That's when he got cruel. How cruel? He threatened to ruin her, said he'd claim she was stalking him, that she'd seduced him for money. He had lawyers' connections. She was a 22-year-old social work student with no family. Who would believe her? My stomach churned. This was my father, my adopted father. Caroline came to me, Patricia continued, begged for help. I was furious. Confronted William, threatened to tell Daddy everything. That's when Margaret got involved. My adoptive mother knew she orchestrated what came next. See, Margaret couldn't have children. They'd been trying for 2 years with no success. She saw an opportunity. The pieces clicked into place with sickening clarity. They took me. Not took, bought. They offered Caroline $50,000 and a promise not to destroy her life if she signed away her parental rights. Let them adopt you. Pretend you were a random adoption. And Caroline agreed. No. Patricia's voice cracked. She ran, took you and disappeared for 3 months. But they found her, and when they did... She stopped, tears streaming down her face. Tell me, I whispered. The police said it was an accident. Car went off the road in the rain, but I knew better. The brake lines. There were questions, but William had connections, and the investigation went nowhere. I felt numb. My mother, my real mother, murdered, and I'd been raised by her killers. I tried to get custody, Patricia continued. You were my best friend's daughter, but William and Margaret had already filed the adoption papers, claimed Caroline had agreed before her death, forged signatures. I'm sure of it, but I couldn't prove anything. So you left. I stayed 2 more years, watched you grow, tried to protect you from the worst of it. But when Margaret got pregnant with Sarah, she laughed bitterly. Suddenly they had their real daughter. You became the spare, the reminder of William's indiscretion. I couldn't watch anymore. All these years, I said slowly, you knew and you never told me. I sent letters, cards on your birthday. They all came back unopened. I hired lawyers, but William threatened to destroy my business if I contacted you. I've been waiting, Lucy, waiting for you to be old enough, strong enough to hear the truth. Do you have proof about Caroline's death? Patricia pulled out a thick envelope. 20 years of investigation, private detectives' accident reports, witness statements. Not enough for court, but enough to know. Your parents aren't just thieves, Lucy. They're murderers. I stared at the envelope. Evidence of a crime 2 decades old. My entire life built on blood and lies. There's more, Patricia said. The $50,000 they were supposed to pay Caroline, I found the canceled check, made out to cash, deposited the day after her death. They kept the money they'd promised to a dead woman. Does Sarah know? About Caroline, no. But she knows you're not Margaret's biological daughter. Has known since she was 16. Overheard an argument between your parents. That's when she started viewing you as competition to eliminate. We sat in silence as the restaurant filled with evening diners. Normal people living normal lives, unaware that at our booth, a lifetime of lies was unraveling. I have a DNA test, Patricia said suddenly. Had it done years ago when you were in high school. Managed to get a hair sample at a family gathering. You're definitely Caroline's daughter. And Lucy, you have grandparents, Caroline's parents. They're still alive, living in Florida. They think their daughter died in college. They don't even know you exist. More family, blood family who didn't know I was alive. Why now, I asked. Why reach out now? Because Angela Torres told me what you did, protecting the company, standing up to them. You're not the scared little girl I had to leave behind. You're strong enough now, strong enough to know the truth and decide what to do with it. What would you do? Patricia's eyes hardened. I'd burn it all down, every last piece of their empire. I'd take Morrison Construction and rebuild it into something Daddy would be proud of. And I'd make damn sure William and Margaret paid for what they did to Caroline. Help me, I said. You know the company, you know the players. Help me save it. I've been waiting 20 years to hear those words. She raised her wine glass. To Caroline Foster, and to the daughter who's going to get the justice she never could. We clinked glasses, sealing a partnership 2 decades in the making. One more thing, Patricia said as we prepared to leave. I have 30% of Morrison Construction stock. Daddy left it to me, and William never managed to steal it. Combined with what you're assembling, we'd have control, I breathed. We'd have control, she confirmed. The Morrison women taking back what's ours. I think Caroline would have liked that. As we walked to the parking lot, my phone buzzed. Emma texting urgently. FBI raided Morrison Construction an hour ago. Your parents are at the police station. Sarah's been arrested. The war had just escalated, but now I had something I'd never had before. Family who actually gave a damn, and the truth about parents who'd literally killed to keep me. Patricia read the text over my shoulder. So it begins, she said quietly. You ready for this? I thought about Caroline Foster, the mother I'd never known, dead at 22 because she'd loved me enough to fight for me. I've been ready my whole life, I said. I just didn't know it. Patricia checked into a hotel downtown, but we met at Emma's law office at midnight. The city lights glittered through the conference room windows as Emma spread documents across the mahogany table. The FBI moved faster than expected. Emma said, her usually perfect hair escaping its bun. Sarah's in federal custody. Your parents made bail, but their assets are frozen pending investigation. All their assets? I asked. Personal accounts only. Morrison Construction's operational accounts are still accessible. She paused. To you, technically. That power of attorney is worth its weight in gold right now. Patricia leaned forward. What about the bankruptcy filing? Can't happen with the FBI investigation active, which means grandfather's codicil won't trigger. I finished. We need another strategy. Emma smiled the sharp grin of a lawyer who lived for complex cases. Remember when I said Patricia's 30% plus your assembled shares would give you control? I did some digging. There's another player we haven't considered. She slid a folder across. Inside, photographs of safety deposit box contents, cash bonds and documents dating back 40 years. Your grandfather's secret stash, Emma explained. Patricia gave me access. $500,000 in bearer bonds completely untraceable. But more interesting is this. A stock certificate, Morrison Construction, 15% held in trust. For the firstborn grandchild of William Morrison, I read. That's Sarah. No, Patricia corrected. That's you. You're 3 months older than Sarah. Legally, you're the firstborn grandchild. But the adoption doesn't matter. The trust specifies grandchild, not biological grandchild. Your grandfather wrote this before Sarah was even conceived. He meant it for you. 15 plus 30 plus 17 from the employees, 62%, total control. There's a catch, Emma warned. The trust requires a board vote to transfer. And guess who sits on the board? William and Margaret Morrison, I said. They'll never vote for it. They will if the alternative is federal prison, Patricia said coldly. We offer them a deal. Sign over control, step down quietly, and we don't pursue Caroline's murder. I stared at her. You want to let them get away with killing my mother? I want to give them a choice. Prison for financial crimes they definitely committed, or freedom in exchange for everything they stole. Either way, they lose Morrison Construction. My phone rang. Robert Williams, the security guard. Miss Lucy, you need to know something. Your father was here an hour ago with Marcus Chen. They were shredding documents. I tried to stop them, but... Are they still there? No, but I made copies before they destroyed everything, hidden in my booth. They didn't know about the new copier with the automatic backup feature. Robert, you beautiful genius. Can you meet us there in 20 minutes? Already on my way. We drove through empty streets, 3 women united by purpose. The Morrison construction building loomed dark except for the security lights. Robert met us at the entrance, a box of papers under his arm. They were destroying everything related to the offshore accounts, he said, handing over the documents. But the copier cached it all. Every transaction, every shell company, every... He stopped staring at one page. Miss Lucy, look at this. A bank statement from the Caymans, deposits totaling $8 million. But the signatures authorizing the transfers weren't my parents'. They were Sarah's, every single one. She wasn't just stealing through ghost employees, Emma breathed. She was running the entire offshore operation. For how long? I asked. Patricia checked the dates. 3 years, since before she got engaged to Brandon. My God, she's been planning this since she was 27. We commandeered the conference room, spreading evidence across the table like generals planning a campaign. By dawn, we had the complete picture. Sarah hadn't just been complicit, she'd been the architect. My parents were greedy, but their daughter was the true mastermind. This changes everything, Emma said. Sarah's looking at 20 years minimum. Your parents might actually be victims in some of this. Victims who were planning to disown me and destroy the company, I reminded her. True, but courts like clear villains. Sarah just became that villain. My phone buzzed, Brandon Whitfield texting, "Can we meet? I have information about Sarah you need to hear." We met him at a 24-hour diner where he looked like he'd aged 5 years overnight. His perfect suit was wrinkled, his Princeton tie loosened. "I've been going through everything," he said without preamble. "Every document she left at my apartment, every email, every text. How did I not see it?" "Love makes us blind," Patricia said, not unkindly. She had accounts I never knew about, credit cards and fake names. She's been living a complete double life. He pulled out a tablet. But the worst part is this. Security footage from his apartment building, Sarah entering with Marcus Chen, timestamp 2 months ago. "She gave him a key," Brandon said quietly, "to our home. While I was at legal conferences, they were... I'm sorry, I said, meaning it. Whatever else Brandon was, he genuinely loved my sister. Don't be. You saved me from marrying a sociopath. He straightened, the lawyer reasserting itself. Which brings me to why I'm here. I want to help. Pro bono. Consider it penance for not seeing what was right in front of me. Emma and Brandon locked eyes, lawyer to lawyer. Some silent professional communication passed between them. "We could use criminal defense expertise," Emma admitted, "especially someone who knows Sarah's patterns." "There's something else," Brandon said. He pulled out a flash drive. Sarah kept recordings. Insurance, she called it. Conversations with your parents about the bankruptcy plan. With Marcus about the offshore accounts. She was building blackmail material on everyone. "Including you?" Patricia asked. "No, that's what's strange. She kept nothing on me, like she actually..." He stopped. "Like some part of her actually cared." I thought about my sister, the golden child who'd felt threatened by an adopted sibling. Had there been moments of genuine emotion buried under the manipulation, or was sparing Brandon just another calculation? "Will you testify?" Emma asked. "If needed. But Lucy, you should know. Your parents' lawyer called me yesterday. They want to make a deal." "What kind of deal?" "Complete transfer of Morrison Construction in exchange for you dropping all civil claims. They're scared, Lucy. The FBI has enough to put them away, but a unified family front would make it worse." "Let them be scared," Patricia said. But I was thinking about 28 years. Not all of it had been lies. There had been birthday parties and Christmas mornings, homework help and driving lessons, moments when they'd seemed like real parents to their adopted daughter. "I'll consider it," I said finally. "But first we secure the company. Tomorrow night's employee meeting. Actually, Robert interrupted, having been quiet until now. That's what I wanted to tell you. Word spread. Every single employee with stock options is coming, plus the retirees who still hold shares. You're looking at maybe 100 people. Do we have a venue? Patricia asked. The warehouse on 5th Street, Robert said. James McCready's arranging it. Miss Lucy, they're calling it the Morrison Rebellion. I laughed, surprising myself. The Morrison Rebellion. Grandfather would have loved that. Then let's give them something to rebel for, I said. Patricia, can you prepare a presentation on the new company structure? Emma, Brandon, we need legal frameworks for employee ownership. Robert, I'll handle security, he said firmly. Real security, some of the guys from my veterans group. Your parents might try to interfere. As we prepared to leave, Brandon pulled me aside. Lucy, there's one more thing. Sarah's pregnant. The words hit like a physical blow. What? 6 weeks. She told me the night before everything exploded. I don't know if it's mine or Marcus's, but she's pregnant in federal custody and probably going to prison. My niece or nephew, growing inside a woman who'd betrayed everyone who'd ever loved her. Does she want to keep it? I asked. I don't know. We haven't spoken since her arrest, but I thought you should know. Whatever happens with Morrison Construction, there's going to be another generation affected by all this. I looked out the diner window at the lightening sky. In 24 hours, everything had changed. I'd discovered my adoption, my mother's murder, my sister's betrayal, my aunt's loyalty. I'd gone from discarded daughter to potential CEO. But somewhere in a federal holding cell, my sister sat with a secret that would complicate everything. A baby who would be born into the wreckage of the Morrison Empire. We protect the innocent, I said finally. The baby didn't choose any of this. Whatever else happens, we make sure that child has a chance. Brandon nodded, relief visible on his face. Even now, even after everything, part of him still hoped for redemption. As we walked to our cars, Patricia took my arm. You sure about this helping Sarah's baby? Caroline would have, I said simply. My mother would have protected an innocent child, wouldn't she? Patricia smiled sadly. Yes, she would have. You're so much like her, Lucy. So much like the woman who loved you more than life itself. The sun rose over Morrison Construction, painting the building gold. In 12 hours, the rebellion would begin. But first, I had a company to prepare for its new future, and a family legacy to either save or shatter. The federal holding facility was a gray concrete box that seemed designed to crush hope. I sat in the sterile visiting room watching my sister shuffle in, wearing orange jumpsuit and shackles, the golden girl of the Morrison family reduced to a federal inmate. Sarah's perfectly styled hair hung limp. Her makeup-free face looked younger, vulnerable, until she saw me. Then her eyes hardened into familiar contempt. Come to gloat, she asked, sitting heavily. Come to talk. About what? How you destroyed my life. How you turned Brandon against me. How you stole $900,000 through fake employees. How you orchestrated the offshore accounts. How you planned to let 47 families suffer so you could retire at 30. She leaned back, studying me with calculating eyes. You always were smarter than they gave you credit for. Too bad you used it against your own family. Brandon told me about the baby, I said quietly. Sarah's hand moved instinctively to her stomach before she caught herself. So that child is family, my niece or nephew, despite everything that matters. Family? Sarah laughed bitterly. You're not even real family. You're the bastard daughter of Dad's mistress. You know that now, don't you? Patricia must have told you. She told me everything, including how my mother died. Sarah's expression shifted, showing genuine surprise. What do you mean, how she died? You don't know. I studied her face. You really don't know about Caroline Foster. I know Dad had an affair. I know the woman died in a car accident. I know they adopted you out of guilt. What else is there to know? For the first time in my life, I felt something like pity for my sister. She'd built her entire identity on being the true Morrison heir, never knowing our parents were murderers. "It doesn't matter now," I said. "What matters is Morrison Construction and your baby. I'm offering you a deal." "I'm listening." "Sign over any claim to the company. Testify truthfully about the offshore accounts. Who knew what, who participated. In exchange, I'll ensure your child is provided for. Trust fund education, everything they need." "And me. You're looking at federal prison either way, but cooperation might mean 5 years instead of 20. Sarah's mask finally cracked completely. "Do you know what it was like growing up as the Morrison princess while everyone whispered about St. Lucy? Why can't you be more like your sister?" Because my sister was perfect. Helpful, dedicated, selfless fucking Lucy. "I was trying to earn their love," I said quietly. "You already had it." "No, I had their expectations. Every achievement measured against yours. Every mistake proof I wasn't as good as the adopted daughter they kept comparing me to." "So you decided to steal—" "I decided to take what was mine." The words exploded from her. "Grandfather loved you more. The employees respected you more. Even Marcus." She stopped. "Marcus what?" "Marcus said I was just a prettier version of our mother. But you were the one who understood the business, who could talk to the workers, who had grandfather's vision." Tears streamed down her face. "Even my affair partner preferred you." The guard shifted, reminding us time was limited. "The deal's on the table," I said. "Your baby protected in exchange for the truth." "The whole truth?" Sarah asked. "Because, Lucy, there are things about Mom and Dad you don't know, things that will destroy them completely." "Such as?" She leaned forward, voice dropping. "The Riverside Heights project, the one that established Morrison Construction as a major player, built on land they acquired through blackmail, Judge Harrison's gambling debts. They've been paying him off for 20 years. Judge Harrison, who'd signed off on my adoption, who'd refused Patricia's custody petition, who'd ruled Caroline's death accidental. You have proof. In a safety deposit box, under my maiden name at First National, box 379, the keys hidden in my jewelry box at Brandon's apartment." She laughed bitterly. "I kept insurance on everyone, learned from the best, dear old Mom and Dad." "Why are you telling me this?" "Because they're going to throw me under the bus. Their precious biological daughter, the one they raised to be just like them. They'll claim I corrupted them, that I masterminded everything." Her hands clenched. "Maybe I did, but they taught me how." A knock on the glass. 5 minutes remaining. "There's something else," Sarah said urgently. "Mom's been calling someone, a number in Chicago. I heard Dad arguing with her about it. Said it was too dangerous, that he wouldn't stop at just money." "Who?" "I don't know, but Mom was scared, really scared. Said something about the Chicago problem coming back." Time was up. The guard approached. "The deal, Sarah, yes or no?" She stood, shackles clanking. "Get me a lawyer, a real one, not one of Dad's puppets. Then we'll talk." As the guard led her away, she turned back. "Lucy. The baby. I don't know whose it is, but if it's Brandon's—" Her voice broke. "Make sure they know their father was a good man, that he tried to do right. And if it's Marcus's, then God help them. They'll have the Chen ambition and the Morrison greed. They'll need you to teach them better." I left the facility with my mind reeling. Judge Harrison, blackmail, a mysterious threat from Chicago. My parents hadn't just killed my mother. They'd built their entire empire on corruption. In the parking lot, my phone rang. Angela Torres, frantic. "Lucy, we have a problem. Your parents just showed up at the warehouse. They're trying to stop the meeting." "How many people are with them?" "Maybe a dozen. Some board members, their lawyers. But Lucy, there are over 100 employees here. James and the guys are keeping them out, but it's getting heated." "On my way," and Angela called Patricia. "Tell her to bring the stock certificates. All of them." "You're doing it tonight. The transfer." They want a fight. I started my car. They'll get one. 20 minutes later, I pulled up to see a scene from a labor dispute documentary. Morrison Construction employees faced off against my parents and their entourage. Signs reading "Morrison Employees United" and "Save Our Jobs" filled the air. William Morrison stood at the front, his face purple with rage. "You're all fired, every last one of you." "You can't fire us," James McCready replied calmly. "We're shareholders. We have rights." That's when he saw me. My father, the man who'd raised me and murdered my mother, locked eyes with his adopted daughter. "You," he snarled, "you did this." I walked through the crowd, employees parting to let me pass. "No, Dad, you did this. 28 years ago when you killed Caroline Foster." The silence that followed was deafening. Margaret Morrison's face went white. Even their lawyers stepped back. "That's right," I continued, voice carrying across the lot. "I know everything. Caroline, the blackmail, Judge Harrison, the Chicago problem." "You know nothing," Mom whispered, but fear flickered in her eyes. "I know Sarah's willing to testify. I know you built Morrison Construction on blood and lies. I know you're both going to prison unless you make a deal." Patricia appeared beside me, briefcase in hand. Emma flanked my other side. Brandon emerged from the crowd. An army of supporters surrounded me while my parents stood increasingly alone. "Here's the offer," I said. "Sign over everything. The company, the assets, your voting rights. Resign from all positions. In exchange, we focus on the financial crimes. Caroline's case stays closed." "And if we refuse," Dad asked. "Then I use every resource at my disposal to investigate her death. Patricia's been collecting evidence for 20 years. The brake lines, the insurance policy you took out on her, the judge you paid off." "You're bluffing." I pulled out my phone, showing him a photograph. "Sarah's safety deposit box. Everything you taught her about keeping insurance, she learned well." The fight went out of him like air from a punctured tire. Behind him, board members whispered urgently, distancing themselves from the toxic Morrison name. "Margaret," he said quietly, "it's over." "No." Mom stepped forward. "I won't let this bastard child take everything you want to know about Chicago fine. Your real father is—" "Margaret, stop," Dad grabbed her arm. But she wrenched free, madness in her eyes. "Vincent Torino, Chicago mob family. Your precious Caroline was his mistress before William. She came here running from him, pregnant with his child. You're not just a bastard, you're mafia spawn." The crowd recoiled. Even I staggered, but Patricia laughed. "Is that the best you can do? Caroline Foster was a virgin when she met William. I have the medical records from her first prenatal appointment. Nice try, though." Mom's lie collapsed, taking her last weapon with it. She sagged against Dad, finally defeated. Inside, I said, "Let's finish this properly." The warehouse had been set up with tables and chairs. Employees filled the space, their futures hanging in the balance. At the front table, Emma had prepared the transfer documents. It took an hour. Signatures, notarizations, the legal dismantling of an empire built on lies. By the end, I held controlling interest in Morrison Construction. Patricia was named board chair. The employees' combined shares gave them a permanent voice. As my parents signed the last document, Dad looked up at me. "Your grandfather would be proud." "My grandfather protected me when you wouldn't," I replied. "Don't invoke his name now." They left without another word, climbing into their Mercedes and driving away from the company they'd corrupted. Board members scattered like roaches when lights came on. "So what now?" James asked. I looked around the warehouse at the faces of people who'd chosen loyalty over comfort, integrity, over easy money. "Now we rebuild," I said. "Morrison Construction employee-owned, transparent, honest, what grandfather always wanted it to be." The cheer that went up shook the rafters. People hugged, cried, celebrated the salvation of their livelihoods. Brandon approached as the celebration continued. "Lucy, I know I have no right to ask, but will you let me know about the baby when it's born?" "If Sarah agrees, yes." "Thank you." He paused. You know you're nothing like them, any of them. I'm like someone, I said, thinking of Caroline Foster. I'm like my mother. As the party continued around us, Patricia pulled me aside. You know Margaret was lying about Chicago, right? I knew Caroline. There was no mob connection. I know, I said, but it shows how desperate they were. What else are they hiding? Does it matter you won? I looked around at the celebrating employees at the company saved from destruction at the future we'd secured. Yeah, I said softly. We won. But as I watched my parents' taillights disappear into the night, I wondered what other secrets would surface. Sarah's mention of the Chicago problem, Mom's panicked lie. There were still shadows in the Morrison family history. For tonight, though, we'd earned our victory. Tomorrow would bring new challenges. But Morrison Construction would face them honestly with the people who'd built it, finally owning their piece of it. Grandfather's dream realized at last. Caroline's daughter vindicated completely. The Morrisons had lost. The employees had won. And I'd found my real family in the process. The next morning arrived with the harsh ring of my phone at 6 a.m., unknown number. Lucy Morrison. The voice was male official. Agent Daniel Reeves, FBI Financial Crimes Division. We need to discuss your parents. I sat up instantly alert. What about them? They've disappeared, cleared out their accounts through channels we were monitoring. Professional job. We believe they had help. My blood ran cold. When? Sometime between leaving your warehouse last night and this morning. Their house is empty. Cars gone. We found evidence of document burning in the backyard. I'll be right there. I threw on clothes and drove to my childhood home. FBI vehicles filled the driveway. Agents moved in and out like ants cataloging the detritus of a hasty escape. Agent Reeves met me at the door. Mid-40s sharp eyes, the look of someone who'd seen too many criminals slip through his fingers. Your parents were facing serious charges, he said, leading me through rooms I'd grown up in. Wire fraud, embezzlement, tax evasion. We had them under surveillance, but they ran, I finished. With help. This was coordinated. Someone provided new identities, transportation, safe passage. Your parents couldn't have managed this alone. We entered Dad's study. Ashes filled the fireplace. The safe stood open empty. But on the desk, centered perfectly, sat an envelope with my name. We haven't opened it, Reeves said. Figured you should read it first. My hands trembled as I broke the seal. Lucy. By the time you read this, we'll be gone. You won. The company, the legacy, everything we built, it's yours now. I hope it brings you more happiness than it brought us. You want the truth, here it is. We didn't kill Caroline Foster, but we didn't save her either. Vincent Torino, yes, he's real, wanted her back. She'd run from Chicago pregnant with another man's child. Not his, despite what Margaret claimed. Some college boy who abandoned her. Torino's men found her. We could have protected her, but it would have meant exposure scandal. So we made a deal. We'd take the baby, you, and they'd leave quietly. Caroline refused, said she'd rather die than give you up. She got her wish. The car accident was Torino's message. Cross the Chicago families, pay the price. We adopted you partly from guilt, partly from fear. If we didn't take you, Torino might come back for his property. You were never just adopted, Lucy. You were a hostage. Margaret couldn't love you knowing what you represented. I tried, but every time I looked at you, I saw Caroline's face, saw our cowardice. We're leaving now because Torino's still alive, still dangerous. Sarah's arrest attracted attention, questions about family history, the Chicago connection. He's been calling, making threats, not just against us, against you. We're drawing him away. Our last act as your parents, flawed as we were. Don't look for us. Don't let the FBI look for us. Let the dead bury the dead. Despite everything, you were the best thing we ever did, even if we did it wrong. William. I read it twice before handing it to Reeves. His expression darkened with each line. Vincent Torino, he muttered. Chicago organized crime. Old school, supposed to be retired. Is he real? Very real. And if your parents are right, very dangerous. He pulled out his phone. I need to make some calls. You might need protection. I wandered through the house while he coordinated with Chicago field offices. Every room held memories now tainted by truth. The kitchen where I'd heard them planning my disinheritance. The living room where they'd lied for 28 years. Sarah's room preserved like a shrine. In my parents' bedroom, I found Mom's jewelry box, overturned valuable pieces left behind in their haste. But tucked in the back of her closet, I discovered something that stopped my heart. A photo album I'd never seen. Pictures of Caroline Foster, young, beautiful, unmistakably my biological mother. But in several photos, she stood next to a man. Dark-haired, intense eyes, expensive suit, protective hand on her shoulder. Not Vincent Torino. I'd Googled him. Someone else. Someone who looked familiar in a way I couldn't place. Lucy, Patricia's voice called from downstairs. The FBI called me. Are you okay? I brought the album down. Patricia's face went white when she saw it. That's Anthony Torino, she whispered. Vincent's son. He was killed in a gang war in 2001. The final piece clicked. Caroline wasn't running from Vincent. She was running from his son's death. She'd been Anthony's girlfriend. And when she got pregnant by someone else after his death, Patricia's voice trailed off. It was seen as betrayal. She was supposed to be the grieving girlfriend forever. Instead, she moved on fell for my father during her grief got pregnant. Agent Reeves returned face grim. Chicago confirms. Vincent Torino's been asking about a woman named Caroline Foster, about her daughter. Your parents' arrest made news in Chicago. Torino knows you exist now. So my parents ran to protect me. Or to save themselves. Maybe both. He studied me. We need to put you in protective custody. No. The word came out firm. I just saved Morrison Construction. I'm not abandoning it now. Miss Morrison. Agent Reeves. I've spent 28 years running from truths I didn't even know existed. I'm done running. My phone rang. Emma. Lucy, you need to get to the office. Now. There's someone here demanding to see you. Says his name is Marcus Chen. Marcus. Sarah's lover, Dad's conspirator. The man who'd helped plan Morrison Construction's destruction. On my way. I'm coming with you, Reeves said. It wasn't a question. The Morrison Construction lobby was tense when we arrived. Marcus sat surrounded by security guards Robert had hired. He looked smaller than I remembered, his usual swagger replaced by desperation. Lucy. He stood when he saw me. Thank God, I need your help. You need my help, I laughed. After what you did? Your parents left me holding the bag. The FBI, the creditors, everyone's after me. But I have information about Torino, about what really happened to Caroline. Agent Reeves stepped forward. Start talking. Marcus glanced around nervously. Not here, somewhere private. Torino has eyes everywhere. We moved to the conference room. Emma, Patricia, and I sat across from Marcus, while Reeves stood guard. 28 years ago, Marcus began, I was William's assistant. Young, ambitious, willing to do anything. When Caroline Foster showed up pregnant, begging for help, your father saw an opportunity. What kind of opportunity? Patricia demanded. Margaret couldn't have children. They'd been trying expensive treatments. Caroline had what they wanted, a baby. But she also had what they feared, a connection to the Torino family. So they made a deal, I said. No, they made a trap. Marcus pulled out a flash drive. William recorded everything. Insurance, he called it. He staged the meeting with Torino's men, made it look like Caroline was willing to sell her baby. Of course she refused. Of course she ran. Right into the accident William had arranged. The room went silent. He killed her himself. Patricia's voice shook. Not directly, but he made sure Torino's men would follow her on that specific route that specific night. Made sure she'd be desperate driving too fast. The rain was just luck. He laughed bitterly. William Morrison, master of plausible deniability. You're lying, I said, but my voice sounded hollow. The recordings are on here. Everything, including discussions about what to do with baby Lucy if the adoption fell through. His eyes met mine. The backup plan was to give you to Torino, a peace offering. I felt sick. Every moment of my childhood recontextualized as a transaction, a business deal written in blood. Why are you telling us this? Emma asked. Because Vincent Torino just called me. Wants a meeting. Wants to know about Caroline's daughter. I'm supposed to deliver Lucy to him. Over my dead body, Patricia snarled. That can be arranged, Marcus said quietly. You don't understand. Vincent Torino lost his son. Caroline was the last link to Anthony. And Lucy is Anthony's legacy once removed. In his mind, she belongs to the Torino family. I belong to no one, I said. Tell that to the man who's had people killed for less. Marcus slid the flash drive across. Everything's on there. William's recordings, the financial crimes, the murder plot. Use it however you want. But Lucy, be careful. Your parents ran for a reason. He stood to leave, then paused. Sarah doesn't know any of this. Whatever else she is, she's not a killer. The baby she's carrying, it's mine. Take care of them if you can. After he left, we sat in stunned silence. The drive sat on the table like a live grenade. We have to listen to it, Emma said finally. No, I said. We turn it over to the FBI. Let them handle it. Lucy, Reeves said gently, this is evidence in your mother's murder. Don't you want to know E? I thought about Caroline Foster, the woman who'd loved me enough to die rather than give me up. Did I need to hear the details of how my adoptive parents had orchestrated her death? I know enough, I said. She loved me. They killed her. Everything else is just details. My phone buzzed. Unknown Chicago number. Don't answer that, Reeves warned. But I was tired of running from ghosts. I picked up. Lucy Morrison. The voice was old gravelly, carrying decades of cigarettes and authority. My name is Vincent Torino. I believe we need to talk about your mother. Which one? I asked. The one your son loved, or the one who raised me? A pause, then a sound that might have been a laugh. You've got spine. Caroline would have liked that. I'll be in Seattle tomorrow, the Fairmont Hotel penthouse suite. Come alone. And if I don't, then I'll come to you, and I won't come alone. The line went dead. Absolutely not, Reeves said immediately. You're not meeting with a known crime boss. But I was already thinking. Vincent Torino, the boogeyman my parents had fled from. The man who'd haunted 28 years of lies. Maybe it was time to face him. I'll go, I said. Lucy, no, Patricia grabbed my hand. This is insane. Is it, he could have had me killed any time in the last 28 years. Instead, he's asking for a meeting. Men like Torino don't ask, Reeves said. They order. Then I guess we'll find out what he wants to order. I stood. In the meantime, we have a company to run. Patricia, can you handle the transition meetings Emma we need to file the ownership transfer papers? You're just going to continue like normal, Emma asked. With a mob boss coming to town, what's the alternative hide run like my parents? I shook my head. Morrison Construction has orders to fill employees to pay. Life goes on. But as I walked to my new office, the one that had been my father's, I wondered if I was being brave or foolish. Vincent Torino represented the last shadow from the past, the final secret in the Morrison family closet. Tomorrow I'd meet the devil my parents had bargained with. Tonight I had a company to save and a future to build. The phone on my desk now, rang. Sarah's lawyer. Miss Morrison, your sister wants to make a deal. Full cooperation, all evidence, complete testimony. She has one condition. What's that? She wants to see you tonight. Says she has something about your mother, your real mother, that you need to hear. Another piece of the puzzle, another secret rising from the depths. Tell her I'll be there, I said. Outside my window, Morrison Construction continued its daily work. Trucks rolled out, workers checked in, business proceeded despite the chaos in the executive suite. Grandfather's legacy, surviving the storm. But the storm wasn't over. Vincent Torino was coming. And somewhere in federal custody, my sister waited with one more revelation about the mother I'd never known. The federal holding facility felt colder the second time. Sarah sat across from me, her orange jumpsuit hanging loose on her shrinking frame. The pregnancy was starting to show a small bump that seemed incongruous with the sterile surroundings. "You look tired," she said. "Mom and Dad ran. The FBI is involved. A Chicago crime boss is coming to town. So yes, I'm tired." Sarah's eyes widened. They actually ran. I didn't think they had it in them. Apparently, Vincent Torino had them more scared than federal prison. Torino. She leaned forward. "Lucy, what aren't you telling me?" I gave her the condensed version, Caroline's connection to Anthony Torino, the orchestrated accident, the lifetime of lies. With each word, Sarah's face grew paler. "They killed her," she whispered. "Our parents actually killed someone." "She wasn't your mother," I reminded her. "No, but she was yours. And they—" She touched her stomach. "How do you raise a child after doing something like that?" "They didn't. Not really. They went through the motions, but they never truly raised either of us. Just managed us like assets in a portfolio." Sarah laughed bitterly. "Assets. That's all we ever were. You were the reminder of their crime. I was the biological validation. Neither of us were daughters. We were just props in their performance of family. Your lawyer said you had information about Caroline." "I do." She pulled out a piece of paper worn from folding. "I found this in Mom's private safe years ago. Kept it because I thought I could use it against you someday. Turns out it's the opposite." I unfolded the paper, a letter handwritten in fading ink. "Margaret, I know what you're planning. William told me everything. How you'll make it look like an accident. How you'll take my baby. I'm writing this as insurance. If something happens to me, this letter goes to the police. But I'm also writing as one woman to another. You can't have children. I understand that pain. But taking mine won't heal your emptiness. It will only spread the poison. If you're reading this, it means I'm gone and you have Lucy. Please, I beg you, don't punish her for my sins or yours. Love her, not as a trophy or a reminder, but as the innocent child she is." I know about Anthony Torino. I loved him, but he's dead. Lucy's father is just a boy who was kind to me when I was grieving. No one special, no one who'll come looking. Let that be enough. Don't let your hatred of me poison her life. She deserves better than either of us. Caroline Foster. My hands shook. My mother had known. She'd seen death coming and tried to protect me even then. Mom kept this, I asked. Hidden away like a guilty secret. I think she read it sometimes. Late at night, I'd find her in her study crying over something. Now I know what. "Why are you giving this to me?" Sarah met my eyes. "Because I'm about to be a mother, and I'm terrified I'll be like them. Cold calculating, treating my child like a business decision. I need to believe we can be better." "We can," I said. "We are. You're cooperating with the FBI. I'm saving the company for the employees. We're already breaking the pattern." "Are we, or are we just playing different roles in the same tragedy?" Before I could answer, my phone buzzed. Robert Williams, urgent. "Miss Lucy, you need to get back here. The employees, they're doing something incredible." "What kind of something?" "Just come. You need to see this yourself." I looked at Sarah. "I have to go." "The meeting with Torino, are you really going?" "I don't know yet." "Be careful, Lucy. We've lost enough mothers in this family." The Morrison construction parking lot was packed when I arrived. Not just employee vehicles, news vans, photographers, even a helicopter circling overhead. A makeshift stage had been erected near the main entrance. James McCready stood at a podium addressing a crowd of hundreds. Every Morrison construction employee, past and present, filled the space. But more than that, Other construction workers, union representatives, business owners from around the city. "Dua, for too long, corporations have treated workers as expendable," James was saying. "Morrison Construction nearly became another casualty of greed. But we said no. We stood together, and now we own our future." The crowd erupted. Signs reading "Workers United" and "Employee Ownership Now" waved above heads. I tried to slip in quietly, but Angela Torres spotted me. "There she is," Angela called out. "Lucy Morrison, the woman who saved our company." Suddenly, I was being pushed toward the stagehands, patting my back, voices calling out thanks. James stepped aside as I reached the podium. "Speech," someone yelled. Then others took up the chant. "Speech, speech." I looked out at the sea of faces. Men and women who'd trusted me with their futures, who'd stood against my parents, risked everything on the word of an adopted daughter they'd chosen to believe in. "I didn't save Morrison Construction," I said, my voice carrying through the speakers. "You did, every one of you who refused to let greed destroy what 3 generations built. You saved it." "But you led us," a voice called out. "No." I shook my head. "I just refused to follow them. There's a difference. My parents, the people who raised me, they forgot something fundamental. A company isn't stock prices or profit margins. It's people. It's families. It's the security of knowing your work means something." The crowd had gone quiet, hundreds of eyes fixed on me. They thought they could hollow out this company, take the money and run. They thought you were expendable. They were wrong. Because while they were scheming in boardrooms, you were building, creating, making something real with your hands and hearts. "Damn right," someone shouted. "So no, I didn't save Morrison Construction. But together we're going to transform it. Employee ownership isn't just about shares and voting rights. It's about dignity, respect, building a company that serves its workers as much as they serve it." "What about the Torino situation?" A reporter had pushed to the front. "Is it true you're meeting with organized crime?" The crowd stirred uneasily. "Vincent Torino is a ghost from the past," I said carefully. "My past, not yours, not Morrison Construction's. I'll handle whatever needs handling, but it won't affect this company or any of you. That's my promise." "We stand with you." Robert Williams stepped forward. "Whatever comes, we've got your back." A chorus of agreement rippled through the crowd. These people, some of whom had known me since I was a child, were offering to stand between me and a mob boss. "I appreciate that," I said, throat tight with emotion. "More than you know. But the best way you can help is to keep Morrison Construction strong. Show the world that employee ownership works, that when workers unite, they're unstoppable." "Union strong," someone yelled, and the chant was taken up. "Union strong, union strong." Patricia appeared at my elbow. "You need to see this," she whispered. "The news coverage is going national. NBC, CBS, CNN. They're all picking up the story." "Good," I said. "Let them see what happens when workers refuse to be victims." The rally continued for another hour. Speeches from union leaders, testimonials from employees, even a few local politicians eager to associate themselves with the movement. Through it all, I thought about the letter in my pocket. Caroline Foster begging for her daughter's life even as she faced death. As the crowd finally dispersed, Brandon Whitfield approached. He looked better than he had at the diner, suit-pressed composure restored. "Impressive," he said. "You've started something bigger than just saving one company." "It wasn't my intention." "The best movements never are." He paused. "I've been thinking about Sarah, about the baby. I want a petition for custody when it's born. Even if it's not yours, especially if it's not mine, that child will need stability, love a chance at normal. I can provide that." I studied him. "Why Sarah betrayed you completely." "Because someone has to break the cycle," he said simply. "The Morrison family tradition of transactional relationships, conditional love children as pawns. Someone has to say enough and mean it." "And you think you're that someone?" "I think I want to try, with your support if you'll give it." I thought about Caroline's letter pleading for love over hatred, about Sarah in her cell terrified of becoming our parents, about a baby who hadn't asked for any of this. "You have it," I said, "whatever you need." "Thank you." He turned to go, then looked back. "Lucy, what you did here today, your mother would be proud. Both of them, I think." As his car pulled away, Agent Reeves appeared. "Impressive crowd control, but we need to discuss tomorrow." "The Torino meeting," "which you're not attending. I've arranged a safe house." "Agent Reeves," I interrupted. "With all due respect, I've spent my entire life in a kind of safe house, protected from truths, sheltered from consequences, living in a bubble of lies. I'm done with that." "This isn't about lies. This is about a dangerous man who might want you dead. Or might want to talk about the woman his son loved, the woman my parents killed." I met his eyes. "I'm going." "Then you're going with protection, non-negotiable." "Fine, but I meet him alone. That's my non-negotiable." We stared at each other, federal authority versus newfound determination. Finally, he nodded. "You've got guts, Morrison. Let's hope they don't get you killed." That night, I stood in my apartment looking out at the city lights. Somewhere out there, my parents were running from shadows. Sarah sat in a cell, growing a new life. Morrison construction employees were celebrating their victory. And tomorrow, Vincent Torino would arrive, the last ghost from a past I'd never lived but couldn't escape. My phone rang, unknown number, but I recognized the voice immediately. "Miss Morrison, Vincent Torino. I'm in Seattle, change of plans. The meeting is tonight, midnight. Pier 47 warehouse at the end. Come alone or don't come at all." The line went dead. I looked at the clock. 3 hours. 3 hours to decide if I was brave enough to face the man who'd haunted my family for almost 3 decades. 3 hours to choose between safety and truth. But really, hadn't I already chosen? The moment I'd transferred that money stood up to my parents saved those jobs. I'd chosen truth over comfort. Now I just had to live with the consequences. By 10 p.m., my phone wouldn't stop ringing. The Morrison construction employee takeover had gone viral, but someone had leaked the Torino connection. Every major news outlet wanted a statement about the adopted daughter, the murdered mother, the mob boss meeting. Emma burst into my apartment. "Lucy, have you seen this?" She thrust her tablet at me. CNN's headline screamed, "Morrison heiress to meet Chicago crime boss. Family secrets span decades." "How did they find out?" I asked. "Someone leaked. Maybe Marcus, maybe someone in the FBI. Doesn't matter. The story's out there." She scrolled through article after article. Wall Street Journal, New York Times, even international papers. Your global news. My phone rang again. Patricia. "Lucy, reporters are camped outside my hotel. They know about Caroline, about my friendship with her. Someone's done deep research." "I'm sorry," I said. "I never meant for this to affect you." "Don't apologize. It's time the truth came out. All of it." Her voice hardened. "But Lucy, this changes things with Torino. He hates publicity, hates attention. This meeting might not happen now." She was wrong. At 11:30, as I prepared to leave for the pier, a black town car pulled up outside my building. The driver, a mountain of a man in an expensive suit, held up a sign with my name. "Mr. Torino sends his compliments," he said in accented English. "He thought you might appreciate a ride considering the media attention." I looked at the news vans already gathering. Getting to Pier 47 alone would be impossible. "Agent Reeves will follow," I said. Mr. Torino expected that. He has no objection as long as they remain outside. The ride through Seattle felt surreal. The driver said nothing more, navigating empty streets with practiced ease. We passed the Morrison construction building, lit up despite the late hour. Employees still celebrating or maybe just too excited to go home. Pier 47 was deserted except for a few expensive cars and men in dark suits who screamed private security. The warehouse at the end looked abandoned from outside, but warm light spilled from the windows. "Through there," the driver said, pointing to a side door. "He's waiting." I texted Reeves my location, then entered alone. The warehouse interior had been transformed into an elegant space. Persian rugs covered the concrete floor. Antique furniture created an intimate sitting area. And in a leather wingback chair sat Vincent Torino. He was older than his pictures suggested, probably pushing 80, but his eyes remained sharp, dangerous. The eyes of a man who'd ordered deaths and never lost sleep over them. "Lucy Morrison," he said, not rising. "You look like her." "Like Caroline." "Like Hope," he corrected. She had that same determined chin, that same way of standing like the world better not try to push her around. The world pushed her pretty hard. "Sit." It wasn't a request. I sat in the chair across from him, hyper-aware of the men standing in shadows around us. "I didn't kill your mother," he said without preamble. "Whatever your parents told you, whatever lies they spun, Caroline's death wasn't my doing. The letter my father left suggested otherwise. Your father was a coward who let my men chase a frightened girl to her death. But the brake lines, the actual crash, that was all William Morrison." He pulled out a cigarette, lit it with hands that barely trembled. "I wanted Caroline back. Yes, she'd been Anthony's girl. In our world, that means something. But I would never have hurt her. Why should I believe you? Because I'm here." He gestured around the warehouse. "I could have taken you any time in the last 28 years. Instead, I watched, waited, let you grow up in that house of lies." "Why?" "Because you were Caroline's choice. She died rather than give you up, to them or to me. I respected that, respected her." He stood then, moving to a table where a bottle of wine waited. "Do you know why she ran to Seattle? Why of all places she came here?" I shook my head. "Because I told her to." He poured 2 glasses, handed me one. "After Anthony died, she was lost, grieving. Some college boy took advantage of that grief. When she found out she was pregnant, she came to me, asked what to do." "And you told her to run?" "I told her Anthony would want her to be happy, would want his child because she was carrying his child in her heart, even if not her body, to have a chance at a normal life." He sipped his wine. "So I gave her money, a car, and the name of someone in Seattle who'd help her start over." "Who?" "Patricia Morrison." He smiled at my shock. "Oh yes, I knew Patricia. She'd done legal work for some of my legitimate businesses. Smart woman, kind too. I knew she'd help a scared pregnant girl. So you sent Caroline to Patricia, who introduced her to William, and the rest is tragedy." His face darkened. "I should have known William Morrison would corrupt anything he touched. Should have protected her better." "Why tell me this now?" "Because you did something I didn't expect. You stood up to them, saved the company, protected the workers, showed spine." He set down his glass. "You're not just Caroline's daughter. You're worthy of her memory." "What do you want from me?" "Nothing, and everything." He moved to another table, picked up a thick envelope. "Inside is everything I gathered about your mother's death. Evidence your FBI friend might find interesting. Enough to bury William Morrison if you choose to use it." I took the envelope, felt its weight, and in exchange— "No exchange, a gift, from an old man who failed to protect someone he cared about." He studied me. "But I do have advice if you'll take it." "I'm listening." "Your parents ran because they're scared, not of prison, of truth. There are more secrets, Lucy Morrison, darker than you know. Be careful how deep you dig." "What kind of secrets?" "The kind that destroy more than just families. The Morrison name is tied to things that go back decades. Judge Harrison was just the beginning." Before I could ask more, one of his men approached, whispered urgently. Torino's expression changed. "It seems the media has found us," he said. "Time for you to go." "Wait," I said as his men began packing up. "Will I see you again?" "No. I'm too old for this game. After tonight, Vincent Torino retires. Permanently." He paused at the door. "But Lucy, if you ever need help, real help the kind the law can't provide, You call this number." He handed me a business card, just a phone number, nothing else. "Why would you help me?" "Because Anthony loved her. Because she died protecting you. Because sometimes family isn't about blood, it's about honor." He smiled sadly. "Be well, Lucy Morrison. Make them all proud." Then he was gone, leaving me alone in an emptying warehouse with an envelope that might contain enough evidence to destroy what was left of my adoptive family. Outside, chaos had erupted. News vans, police cars, FBI vehicles. Cameras flashed as I emerged. Agent Reeves pushed through the crowd, face furious. "Are you insane?" he hissed, pulling me toward his car. "Do you have any idea what you just did?" "Had a conversation with an old man about my dead mother," I said calmly. "A conversation that's now international news." He gestured at the media circus. "Morrison heiress meets mob boss. How's that for a headline?" But I wasn't listening. On the nearest news van's monitor, I saw something that made my blood run cold. Sarah's mugshot next to the words, "Breaking News." "Turn that up," I shouted. "Oh, Morrison, sister of Lucy Morrison, who met with alleged crime boss Vincent Torino tonight, has been hospitalized after collapsing in federal custody. Sources say the pregnancy complications are severe." "Get me to the hospital," I told Reeves. "Now." "Lucy, now." As we raced through Seattle streets, I clutched Torino's envelope. Secrets within secrets, he'd said. Darkness deeper than I knew. But right now, none of that mattered. My sister, the woman who'd betrayed everyone, stolen everything, planned to destroy dozens of lives, was fighting for her own life. And despite everything, I couldn't let her face it alone. Because Vincent Torino was right. Sometimes family isn't about blood or law or shared history. Sometimes it's just about showing up when someone needs you, even if they don't deserve it. Especially if they don't deserve it. The hospital smelled of disinfectant and despair. I found Sarah in the high-security ward, handcuffed to her bed, despite being unconscious. Monitors beeped steadily, tracking 2 heartbeats, hers and the baby's. Brandon sat beside her, holding her free hand. He looked up when I entered, eyes red-rimmed. "The doctors say it's stress-induced preeclampsia," he said quietly. "The pregnancy, the arrest, everything. Her body's shutting down." I sat across from him, studying my sister's face. Without makeup, without the perfect composure, she looked young, vulnerable. "Why are you here?" I asked Brandon. "After everything she did." "Because I loved her. Not the woman she became, but the woman I thought she was. Maybe that person never existed, but—" He squeezed Sarah's hand. "The feelings were real, even if she wasn't." A doctor entered, checking charts and monitors. "Are you family?" she asked me. "I'm her sister." "Good. We need to discuss options. The pregnancy is only 20 weeks. If we deliver now, the baby likely won't survive. But if we wait, your sister might not." "What does Sarah want?" "She hasn't regained consciousness since arriving. Mr. Whitfield has no legal standing to make medical decisions. That falls to next of kin." I felt the weight of that responsibility. Sarah, who'd stolen and schemed and betrayed now, depended on me to choose between her life and her child's. What would give them both the best chance, I asked. Aggressive treatment for the preeclampsia, medication monitoring bed rest, but she'd need to remain in custody and the stress of that environment. "She'll be released to home monitoring," Brandon said suddenly. "I'll petition the court. Medical necessity. She'll stay with me, ankle monitor, full surveillance. Whatever it takes." "Brandon," I started, but he cut me off. "She's carrying a child, Lucy. Whatever she's done, that baby deserves a chance." Before I could respond, my phone rang. Patricia. "Lucy, you need to see the news, now." I found a television in the waiting room. Every channel showed the same thing, William and Margaret Morrison in handcuffs being led into FBI headquarters. "Captured at the Canadian border," the reporter was saying. The Morrison parents who fled amid financial fraud allegations were attempting to cross using false identification. but it was what came next that stopped my heart. In a shocking twist, William Morrison has agreed to testify about what he calls decades of corruption in Seattle's construction industry. Sources say his testimony could implicate dozens of prominent business and political figures. "He's going to burn it all down," I whispered. My phone rang again. Agent Reeves. "Lucy, your father's talking. He's giving us everything: names, dates, bribes, kickbacks. Half of Seattle's elite are about to be arrested." Why now? Because he knows he's finished. The evidence from Torino, plus what we already had, he's looking at life in prison. This is his play for a deal. I thought about my father, the man who'd raised me while hiding my mother's murder. Now faced with consequences, he was willing to destroy everyone who'd ever worked with him. "There's more," Reeves continued. "He's claiming your mother, Margaret, was the mastermind, says she orchestrated Caroline's death, the fraud, everything. And Margaret, demanding a lawyer, refusing to talk. But Lucy, some of what William's saying checks out. Margaret's name is on documents going back decades, shell companies' offshore accounts, all in her name." I returned to Sarah's room where Brandon was speaking softly to her unconscious form. The monitors continued their steady rhythm. "She's turning them against each other," I said. "Our parents. They're destroying each other to save themselves." Brandon looked up. "Good. Let them tear each other apart. Maybe some truth will fall out in the process." My phone buzzed. Emma texting urgently. "Emergency board meeting called. Several members want to distance themselves from Morrison Construction given the news. We could lose everything we just saved." "I have to go," I told Brandon. "The company—" "Go," he said. "I'll stay with her, with them." I touched Sarah's hand briefly. Despite everything, she was still my sister, still carrying an innocent life that deserved protection. "Fight," I whispered to her. "For once in your life, fight for something that matters." The Morrison Construction boardroom was in chaos when I arrived. Board members who'd supported my parents for years now scrambled to distance themselves from the tainted Morrison name. "We need to rebrand immediately," one was saying. "The Morrison name is toxic now. We need to consider selling," another added. "Cut our losses before—" "Before what?" I interrupted, entering the room. "Before we finish what we started. Before we prove that employee ownership can work." "Lucy," the board chairman said carefully, "your father's testimony will destroy this company's reputation. Every contract will be scrutinized. Every relationship questioned." "Good," I said, taking my seat at the head of the table. "Let them scrutinize. Let them question. We have new leadership, new ownership, new values. We're not the company William Morrison built on bribes and blood." "The media won't see it that way," someone protested. "Then we'll show them." I stood looking at each board member. "We'll open our books, complete transparency. Every contract, every payment, every decision. We'll show Seattle what honest business looks like." "That's corporate suicide," the chairman said. "No," Patricia said from the doorway. "That's corporate rebirth." She entered with James McCready, Angela Torres, and a dozen other employee owners. They filled the room surrounding the old board members. "We've taken a vote," James announced. "The employee owners support Lucy's proposal, full transparency, complete reform. And if any board members can't support that vision," he smiled grimly, "we'll vote in ones who can." The old guard looked around nervously. They were outnumbered, outmaneuvered, facing a new reality where workers had power. One by one, they capitulated. Within an hour, half the board had resigned. The others pledged support for the Transparency Initiative. As the meeting concluded, my phone rang, an unknown number. "Miss Morrison." A woman's voice, elderly but strong. "My name is Dorothy Foster. I believe you might be my granddaughter." Caroline's mother, the grandparents Patricia had mentioned. Yes, I managed. "I think I am. We saw the news, saw your picture. You look just like her, just like our Caroline." Her voice broke. "We thought she died in college. Never knew about you. Never knew." "Where are you?" I asked. Florida. But we're flying to Seattle tomorrow. We need to meet you. Need to see. A pause. Is it true what they're saying? That your adoptive parents killed her? I don't know all the details yet, I said carefully, but yes, they were involved in her death. Silence. Then, we'll see you tomorrow. There are things you need to know about Caroline, about why she really left Chicago. Another piece of the puzzle, another secret waiting to be revealed. That night, I stood in my office, grandfather's office, looking out at the city. Somewhere, my adoptive parents sat in separate cells, turning on each other. Sarah fought for her life and her babies. The Fosters flew toward a granddaughter they'd never known existed. And Morrison Construction, built on lies and corruption, began its transformation into something clean. My phone buzzed. A text from the number Vincent Torino had given me. Saw the news. Your parents in custody. The truth emerging. Caroline would be proud. So is an old man in Chicago. Be well, Lucy Morrison. I smiled sadly. Even mob bosses, it seemed, could appreciate justice when they saw it. Emma entered with a stack of papers. Preliminary audit results. Your father was telling the truth. The corruption goes deep. But Lucy, the employee fund is clean. Every pension protected. Your grandfather kept the workers' money separate from the dirty deals. Of course he did, I said. He knew what was happening, tried to protect what he could. There's something else. A safety deposit box in your grandfather's name we didn't know about. The key was in his old desk. Inside. She handed me a letter. Grandfather's handwriting dated a month before his death. My dearest Lucy, if you're reading this, then you've taken control of Morrison Construction. Good. It was always meant to be yours. I knew about Caroline, knew what William and Margaret did. My greatest shame is that I couldn't stop it, couldn't save her. But I could save you, could give you a place in this family even if they never truly accepted you. The company will need rebuilding. William's corruption runs deep, but you have something he never had, integrity. Use it. Transform Morrison Construction into what it should have been. I'm leaving you more than a company. In this box are Caroline's things, photos, letters, mementos I saved. Your mother was a remarkable woman who loved you more than life itself. Be better than we were, Lucy. Break the cycle. Build something worthy of the sacrifice she made. All my love, Grandfather. I wiped away tears as I looked through Caroline's things. Photos of a young woman full of hope, letters to friends about her dreams, an ultrasound photo labeled Baby Girl Morrison. She'd already chosen my name, already saw me as a Morrison even before the adoption. Lucy, Emma said softly, what do you want to do? I looked at my friend, my lawyer, my support system, then at the photos of Caroline Foster, the mother I'd never known but who'd shaped my entire life. We rebuild, I said. We take Grandfather's dream and Caroline's sacrifice, and we build something worthy of them both. Morrison Construction rises from these ashes. The media will be brutal, Emma warned. Your parents' trial, Sarah's situation, the corruption revelations. Let them come, I said. We'll face it with truth, with transparency, with the strength of workers united. Outside Seattle glittered in the darkness. Somewhere in that glitter were 47 families whose futures we'd saved, hundreds more who'd joined our cause, a movement that had started with a desperate late-night transfer and grown into something larger than any of us had imagined. Tomorrow would bring new challenges. The Fosters arriving seeking answers about their daughter's death, Sarah's medical crisis, my parents' trials, the systematic dismantling of decades of corruption. But tonight I stood in my grandfather's office holding my mother's ultrasound photo and felt something I'd never experienced in 28 years of life. I felt like I was exactly where I belonged. 6 months later, Morrison Construction looked nothing like the company my parents had fled. Glass walls replaced closed doors. Financial reports were published online weekly. Every contract, every bid, every decision was documented and available for employee review. The transparency had cost us initially. Some clients nervous about their own exposure pulled contracts. Stock price plummeted. The old guard predicted bankruptcy within months. They were wrong. New clients came drawn by our radical honesty. Government contracts favored our open book approach. Young engineers and architects tired of industry corruption flocked to join us. Morrison Construction became synonymous with integrity in an industry desperate for it. I stood before 200 employees at our quarterly meeting, Sarah's baby sleeping in my arms. 6 months ago, I said, we saved this company from destruction. Today we've proved something more important. That honest business isn't just possible, it's profitable. The crowd erupted in applause. In the front row, Dorothy and Robert Foster beamed. Caroline's parents had become fixtures at Morrison Construction, volunteering in the daycare we'd established, sharing stories of their daughter with anyone who'd listen. Our revenue is up 15%, I continued. Our employee satisfaction scores are the highest in the industry, and today I'm announcing our newest initiative, the Caroline Foster Foundation providing scholarships for children of construction workers. More applause. The baby stirred, but didn't wake. Marcus Chen's son, DNA had confirmed it, but Brandon's child in every way that mattered. Sarah, serving her reduced sentence in minimum security, had signed away parental rights. Brandon was raising him with the help of a village that included me, the Fosters, and half of Morrison Construction's employees. We've also received word from the federal prosecutors, I added. Based on evidence provided by Morrison Construction's Transparency Initiative, 17 corrupt officials have been indicted. The culture of bribes and kickbacks that poisoned Seattle's construction industry for decades is finally ending. As the meeting continued, I thought about my parents. William had received 15 years as testimony, buying him a reduced sentence. Margaret, who'd maintained her innocence to the end, got 25. They'd turned on each other so completely that they'd been placed in separate facilities to prevent communication. Neither had asked about Sarah or the baby. Neither had reached out to me. Lucy, Patricia touched my shoulder. You have visitors. In my office, still strange to think of it as mine, Agent Reeves waited with a woman I'd never seen before. Ms. Morrison, Reeves said, "This is Agent Sarah Kim from our Chicago office. She has information about Vincent Torino." My stomach tightened. Is he all right? He passed away 2 months ago, Agent Kim said gently. Natural causes, but he left instructions regarding you. She handed me an envelope. Inside a simple note, the old debts are paid. Live free. VT. There's more, Kim continued. Torino's organization is dissolving, going legitimate. As part of that process, they've provided us with decades of records, including these. Another envelope, inside documents that made my hands shake. Adoption papers. I breathed. Vincent Torino tried to adopt me. Filed the day after Caroline Foster's death. Kim confirmed. He claimed paternal rights, said Anthony might have been the father. Your adoptive parents fought it won based on Caroline's signed consent. Consent she gave under duress, Reeves added. Torino spent years trying to prove that, but a mob boss fighting respected business leaders for custody was never going to win, I finished. He kept tabs on you, though, Kim said. We found files going back decades. School reports, photos, newspaper clippings. He watched you grow up from a distance. I thought about the old man in the warehouse talking about Caroline with such sadness. He'd lost his son, lost the woman his son loved, and lost any connection to the child who might have been his grandchild. Why didn't he tell me? I asked. Would you have believed him? The mob boss who claimed he just wanted to love Caroline's daughter? Kim shrugged. He chose to watch, to wait, and when you stood up to your parents, he saw his chance to finally tell you the truth. After they left, I sat feeding the baby while Patricia reviewed quarterly reports. Such a strange family we'd built. The aunt who was really my cousin, the nephew who wasn't my blood, the grandparents who'd found me through CNN. My phone rang, Sarah calling from prison. How is he? She asked immediately. Perfect, I said. Brandon brought him to visit yesterday. He's got your eyes. Mom's eyes? She corrected. I've been thinking about that, how traits pass down wanted or not. Sarah, I'm getting therapy, she interrupted. Real therapy. Trying to understand how I became what I became. The therapist says it's not too late to change, to be better. I believe that, I said. Even after everything, especially after everything, we're not our parents, Sarah. We get to choose who we become. Silence then. I love you, Lucy. I don't think I ever said that and meant it, but I do. I love you too, I said, surprising myself by meaning it. After she hung up, I looked around my office. Photos covered one wall now. Employees at the company picnic, the Fosters with their new great-grandson Sarah in prison orange, holding the baby during a supervised visit, Patricia and I signing the papers that made her CEO while I focused on the foundation. Morrison Construction was thriving. The employee ownership model was being studied by business schools. Other companies were adopting our transparency policies. We'd sparked a movement neither my parents nor I had seen coming. But more than that, we'd built something rarer than business success. We'd built a community of people who chose each other, supported each other, forgave each other. You ready? Patricia asked. The journalism students will be here soon. Once a month, we hosted groups wanting to study our transformation. Today's batch was particularly interested in how we'd handled the media storm. Almost, I said, settling the baby in his carrier. Patricia, do you think Caroline would be proud? She smiled. I think Caroline would be amazed. Her daughter, raised by her killers, not only survived, but transformed their weapon into something beautiful. Yes, Lucy. She'd be proud. As we headed to the conference room, I thought about the journey that had brought us here. The overheard conversation that started everything. The late-night transfer that saved 47 families. The truth about my mother's death. The mob boss who'd loved from afar. The parents who'd chosen corruption over family. The sister who'd learned too late what mattered. Ms. Morrison. A young journalism student raised her hand. Your story has inspired employee ownership movements nationwide. Did you anticipate that when you started? No, I said honestly. I just wanted to save my grandfather's company and protect the people who'd built it. Everything else grew from that simple choice. But the personal cost, another student pressed. Your parents imprisoned your sister in jail death threats from those exposed by your transparency. Was it worth it? I looked at the baby sleeping peacefully, thought of Sarah slowly healing in prison, of Brandon stepping up as a father of the Fosters, finding joy in their great-grandchild of Patricia, finally able to honor her best friend's memory. Cost assumes I lost something of value, I said. But what I gained, truth, purpose, real family, the chance to honor my mother's sacrifice, that's worth more than the lies I left behind. What's next for Morrison Construction? Someone asked. We keep building, I said simply. Not just structures, but community. Not just profit, but purpose. We prove every day that business can be both successful and ethical, that workers deserve ownership in what they create, that transparency beats corruption every time. And personally, the first student asked, what's next for Lucy Morrison? I smiled, thinking of the dinner plans with the Fosters, the weekend visit to Sarah, the foundation board meeting, where we'd approve our 100th scholarship, the date I'd finally agreed to with David Kim, the prosecutor who'd helped build our case and stayed to help build our future. I'm going to live, I said, freely, honestly surrounded by people who choose family over blood integrity, over profit, truth over comfort. I'm going to live the life my mother died protecting my grandfather, dreamed of enabling, and my adoptive parents never understood was possible. That's beautiful, the student said, like a fairy tale ending. No, I corrected gently. Fairy tales end with happily ever after. Real life continues with hopefully ever forward. We're not done. We're just beginning. 2 years had passed since the night I'd overheard my fate through a kitchen door. Morrison Construction had become a case study in ethical business transformation. The employee ownership model had spread to 12 other companies. The Caroline Foster Foundation had sent 43 kids to college. But today wasn't about business. Today was about ghosts. Margaret Morrison sat across from me in the prison visiting room, looking every one of her 68 years. Federal prison had stripped away the polish, revealing the bitter core beneath. "Why did you come?" she asked, her voice hoarse from disuse. "Sarah asked me to," I said simply. "She thought it was time." "Sarah," she laughed bitterly, "my perfect daughter, in prison because of you. Sarah's in prison because she stole $900,000 and orchestrated federal fraud, but she's getting out next month. Time served good behavior cooperation with authorities." Margaret's eyes sharpened. "Getting out. Brandon's been preparing. She'll live with him and little Anthony for the supervised release period. She's been taking accounting courses, plans to work for the foundation. Legitimate work this time. Anthony," she tasted the name. "You named the baby after Torino's son." Brandon named him. Said every child deserves a chance to redeem a name. Silence stretched between us. I'd rehearsed this conversation 100 times, but faced with the woman who'd raised me while hating me, words failed. "I have cancer," she said suddenly. "Pancreatic, 6 months, maybe less." The news hit like a physical blow, unexpected in its impact. "I'm sorry." "Are you—" She leaned forward. "Are you really sorry the woman who helped kill your mother is dying?" "I'm sorry for the waste," I said. "You could have been a mother to me, a real mother. Instead, you chose hatred." "I chose loyalty. To my husband, my real daughter, my family name." "Your husband who blamed everything on you to save himself. Your daughter, who you taught to steal. Your name that's now synonymous with corruption." I shook my head. "What did that loyalty buy you, Margaret?" Her face crumbled. For the first time in my life, I saw her cry. "I lost everything," she whispered. "Everything I built, schemed for, protected. Gone." "Not everything, I said. "You still have 2 daughters who survived your parenting, a grandson you've never met, a chance to make some kind of peace before I die." She wiped her eyes, composure reasserting. "What do you want from me, Lucy?" The truth, about Caroline, about what really happened that night. She was quiet so long I thought she wouldn't answer. Then, "Vincent Torino told you his version. William told the FBI his. Want to hear mine?" I nodded. Caroline Foster was nobody, a grieving girl who'd latched on to William at some business function. When she showed up pregnant claiming he'd promised to leave me, I wanted to destroy her. But William had a different idea. I couldn't have children. Years of trying fortunes spent on treatments. Here was a baby ready-made. All we had to do was convince the mother. Convince or coerce? Does it matter? She was 22, alone, penniless. We offered her money to disappear. She refused, threatened to go public, ruin us. So William involved Torino. Knowing it would terrify her. Knowing it would make her run, which she did, right into a rainstorm and a curve taken too fast. Margaret met my eyes. The brake lines weren't cut. That was just Torino's paranoia. Caroline died because she was driving scared in bad weather. An accident enabled by us, but an accident nonetheless. You don't believe that. I've had 28 years to make myself believe it. But you're right. We killed her as surely as if we'd cut those brake lines ourselves. And then... Her voice broke again. Then we took her baby. Why keep me? Why not give me to Torino or foster care or anyone else? Because I wanted a baby, had dreamed of one for so long. And there you were, 3 years old, frightened, calling for a mama who'd never come. She looked away. For a few months I loved you. Truly. You were so eager to please, so desperate for affection. Everything a mother could want. What changed? Sarah was born. My miracle baby against all odds. Suddenly I had a real daughter, and you were just evidence. of what we'd done, of who we'd become. Every time I looked at you, I saw Caroline's face, saw her terror as she ran, heard the screech of tires that haunted my dreams. So you punished me for your guilt. I distanced myself from my sanity. But William insisted on keeping you close, said grandfather would ask questions if you disappeared, so we played family. Badly, cruelly, but we played. And Sarah knew you were adopted, but not the details. She created her own narrative, that you were competition, a threat. We didn't correct her. It was easier to let her hate you than explain why we did. We sat in silence, 28 years of dysfunction laid bare between us. I don't expect forgiveness, Margaret said finally. I don't deserve it, but I need you to know. Caroline fought for you. Even as Torino's men surrounded her, even as William threatened her, she refused to give you up. She loved you more in her short time as your mother than I managed in decades. I know, I said. I've met her parents. They tell me stories about her. Show me pictures. I know who she was. Then you know she'd be proud of what you've become, of what you've built from the ashes of our greed. Is that why you wanted to see me, to offer approval I don't need? No. She reached into her pocket, pulled out a small key. I wanted to give you this. My safety deposit box. Everything's in Sarah's name now. She'll have access when she's released, but there's something in there for you. What? The only thing of value I have left, the truth. Recordings William didn't know I made, documents he thought were destroyed, names of everyone involved in Caroline's death, and the cover-up. Why now? Because I'm dying. Because you saved Morrison Construction and all those families despite what we did to you. Because Sarah's getting a second chance she doesn't deserve. Because maybe if there's a God, this might balance the scales a fraction. I took the key, its weight heavier than metal should be. There's one more thing, she said as our time ran out. In the box, there's a letter. From Caroline. She gave it to me the day she died, asked me to give it to you when you were old enough. I never did. Another sin to add to the collection. 25 years you kept it. 25 years I read it, hoping to find justification for what we did. Instead, I found only love. A mother's love for a daughter she knew she might never see grow up. The guard signaled our time was over. Lucy, Margaret said as I stood to leave, I know I have no right to ask, but could you bring Anthony to see me just once before? I thought of all the times she'd pushed me aside for Sarah, all the moments she'd chosen cruelty over kindness, all the love she'd withheld out of guilt and resentment. I'll ask Brandon, I said. It's his decision. Thank you, she whispered. And Lucy, I'm sorry for all of it. It doesn't change anything, but I'm sorry. I left her there, a dying woman in a federal prison, finally speaking truths that came too late. But even late truths had value. Even deathbed confessions could bring closure. That evening, I sat in Morrison Construction's Memorial Garden, a space we'd created to honor grandfather and all those who'd built the company. Patricia found me there reading Caroline's letter for the 10th time. My darling Lucy, if you're reading this, then the worst has happened, and I'm not there to watch you grow. But I need you to know, you are loved, you are wanted, you are the best thing that ever happened to me. I don't know what the Morrisons will tell you about me. Maybe nothing, maybe lies. So let me tell you the truth. I was young and scared and alone, but the moment I knew you existed, I had purpose. You gave me strength I didn't know I had. They want to take you from me. Say I'm not fit to be your mother. Maybe they're right. I'm nobody special. Just a girl who made mistakes and got in over her head. But I love you with every fiber of my being. If they raise you, I pray they'll be better to you than they've been to me. I pray they'll see you as the gift. You are not the burden they seem to think. I pray you'll grow up strong and kind and brave. Know this, my sweet girl, wherever I am, whatever happens, my love goes with you. In every smile, every tear, every moment of your precious life, you carry my heart. Be better than all of us, Lucy. Break free from whatever chains they put on you. Live, love, soar. Forever your mother, Corey Carolyn. She knew, Patricia said softly, reading over my shoulder. Somehow, she knew they'd try to contain you, and she wanted you to break free. Mission accomplished, I said, wiping away tears. What will you do with Margaret's evidence? Give it to the FBI. Let them finish what we started. Everyone involved in covering up Caroline's death should face justice. Even if it destroys more reputations, impacts Morrison Construction. We've survived worse. We'll survive this too. Patricia squeezed my shoulder. The board meeting's in an hour, ready to face the future. I folded Caroline's letter carefully, holding it close. I've been ready my whole life. As we walked back to the building, my phone rang. David from the courthouse. Sarah's release was approved, he said. She'll be out tomorrow. Thought you'd want to know. We'll be there, I promised. Tomorrow my sister would walk free. Not the same woman who'd entered prison, but someone trying to be better. Someone learning what I'd always known. That family isn't about blood or names or inheritance. It's about showing up, forgiving, trying again. Margaret Morrison was dying. William Morrison was serving his time. Sarah Morrison was getting her second chance. And Lucy Morrison, Lucy Foster Morrison, as I'd legally become, was living the life her mother had died protecting. Not a fairy tale ending, just a human one. Messy, complicated, ongoing. But honest. Finally, blessedly honest. The morning Sarah walked out of federal prison, a crowd waited that she hadn't expected. Not reporters or protesters, but Morrison Construction employees. 47 families whose jobs she'd nearly destroyed stood in the parking lot holding a banner, "Everyone deserves a second chance." She stopped at the prison gates, baby Anthony in her arms. Brandon had brought him, tears streaming down her face. "Why?" she asked when I reached her. "Why are they here?" "Because James McCready's son just got out of prison for drug charges," I said. "Because Angela's daughter struggles with addiction. Because everyone here knows what it's like to need forgiveness." "I don't deserve this," she whispered. No, I agreed. But grace isn't about deserving. Robert Williams stepped forward, the security guard who'd helped expose everything. "Miss Sarah, we voted. Unanimous. You're welcome at Morrison Construction. Fresh start if you want it." She broke down completely, then sobbing into Anthony's hair while Brandon held them both. The employees applauded, not for who she'd been, but for who she might become. Later in the Morrison Construction conference room, Sarah signed her employment contract. Entry-level accounting in the foundation, full transparency daily check-ins with her parole officer. She'd gone from CFO in waiting to junior clerk and seemed grateful for it. "I want to show you something," she said after the paperwork was complete. She pulled out a worn notebook. "I've been keeping this in prison. Every person I hurt, every dollar I stole, every life I affected. I'm going to make it right, however long it takes." "Sarah, you can't—" "I can try." She looked at me with clear eyes. "You saved the company despite me. The least I can do is help rebuild what I tried to destroy." That afternoon, we held Morrison Construction's third annual shareholder meeting. The warehouse was packed with employee owners, community partners, and journalists documenting our ongoing transformation. 3 years ago, I said from the podium, this company almost died from greed. Today it thrives on transparency. Our revenue has doubled. Our employee satisfaction leads the industry, and our model has inspired 23 other companies to adopt employee ownership. Applause filled the space, but I wasn't finished. Today marks another milestone. The Caroline Foster Foundation has partnered with the city to create the Foster Center for Business Ethics. It will train the next generation in transparent, ethical business practices. Dorothy Foster stood to wave her husband Robert beside her. At 80, they'd become the grandparents I'd never had, throwing themselves into the foundation's work with passion. But perhaps most importantly, I continued, Today, we announce Morrison Construction's biggest project yet. In partnership with the city and state, we'll be building affordable housing on the site where my parents planned their fraudulent development. 300 units for working families built by the workers themselves. The crowd erupted. This was what we'd been working toward, not just saving jobs, but creating opportunity, not just surviving, but thriving. After the meeting, I found myself in grandfather's garden with an unexpected visitor. William Morrison, out on supervised release for medical reasons, looking decades older than his 65 years. "I shouldn't be here," he said quietly. "No, you shouldn't, but you are, so talk." He pulled out an envelope, hands shaking. "I've been writing you letters, from prison, never sent them, couldn't find the words. And now I'm dying. Heart disease, the doctors say. Fitting, I suppose." He attempted a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "I came to say I'm sorry. Not for your mother's death. Margaret told the truth about that. But for everything after. For raising you without love. For choosing greed over family. For teaching Sarah to be like us. Sorry doesn't bring back 28 years. No, but maybe it helps with the next 28. He held out the envelope. "It's all in here. Every detail about Caroline I remember. Every moment of guilt. Every time I watched you exceed our expectations despite our neglect. Your story from my perspective." "Why would I want that?" "Because Anthony asked for it. Your nephew. He'll want to know his family history someday. The real history, not the sanitized version. He deserves to know where he came from, mistakes and all." I took the envelope, feeling its weight. "Is that all?" "No." He met my eyes for perhaps the first time in my life. "I loved you. In my broken, selfish way, I loved you. Not enough to protect you from Margaret's coldness or Sarah's jealousy or my own cowardice. But I loved you. Caroline would have hated how I showed it, but it was there." "Why tell me now?" "Because I'll be dead soon. Because you've become everything I was too weak to be. Because maybe somewhere Caroline knows that her daughter survived us, thrived despite us, became the Morrison this family needed." He turned to leave, then paused. "The FBI asked me about other crimes, things from the early days when father was still alive. I told them nothing. But Lucy, be careful. The Chicago connection went deeper than just Torino. There are still shadows in this company's foundation." "What kind of shadows?" "The kind that think employee ownership is bad for business. The kind that lost money when we went transparent. The kind that might want the old ways back." He coughed a wet sound that spoke of limited time. "Watch your back. You've made enemies of powerful people." After he left, I sat in the garden processing his warning. We'd survived family betrayal, federal investigation, and public scandal. But there were always more threats, more challenges. My phone buzzed. David texting from the courthouse where he was prosecuting another corruption case we'd exposed. "Dinner tonight, I have news." 4 hours later, we sat at our favorite restaurant. Nothing fancy, just good food and quiet conversation. David had become my anchor through the chaos, the steady presence who reminded me life existed beyond Morrison Construction. "So what's the news?" I asked. He pulled out a small box. "I love you. I love your dedication to justice, your compassion for people who've hurt you, your strength in the face of impossible odds. I love that you turned tragedy into triumph, that you chose building over burning. Marry me." The ring was simple, elegant, perfect, like the man offering it. "Yes," I said, laughing and crying simultaneously. "Yes, of course, yes." Around us, the restaurant continued its normal evening service, unaware that Lucy Morrison, the girl who discovered her life was a lie, had just chosen her own truth. Later that night, I stood in my apartment looking at the wall of photos that told my story. Caroline Foster, young and hopeful. The Morrisons playing at family. Sarah in prison orange learning humility. Anthony taking his first steps. The employees of Morrison Construction, faces bright with ownership. My phone rang, Patricia from the hospital. "It's Margaret," she said. "She's asking for you. The doctors say it's hours, maybe less." I almost didn't go, but forgiveness I'd learned wasn't about the person who'd hurt you. It was about freeing yourself from the chains of resentment. Margaret lay in the hospital bed machines, monitoring her fading life. Sarah sat beside her, holding her hand. Brandon waited in the corner with Anthony sleeping in his arms. "Lucy," Margaret whispered, "you came." "Sarah asked me to." "No." She squeezed Sarah's hand weakly. "Thank you, darling, but I need to speak to Lucy alone." Sarah kissed her mother's forehead and left with Brandon. Margaret and I were alone for perhaps the first time in our lives. "I'm scared," she admitted. "Not of dying, of what comes after. If there's justice in the universe, I'm damned." "I don't believe in damnation," I said. "Just consequences and choices." "Then I made terrible choices." She struggled to breathe. "But watching you these last years, seeing what you built from our ashes, maybe something good came from the horror. Many good things. Morrison Construction employs hundreds. The foundation educates dozens. Families are secure because we chose transparency over profit." "We," she smiled faintly. "You still include me in the family. You raised me, badly, coldly, but you were there. That makes you family even if we both wish it were different. I need to tell you something about Chicago, about the threats William mentioned." I leaned closer. "Senator Marcus, Judge Harrison's replacement. He was part of the original deal with Torino. He's been quietly buying Morrison Construction stock through shell companies, preparing a hostile takeover. To restore the old ways, the bribes, the kickbacks, the corruption. He has backing from others who profited from how things were." She gripped my hand with surprising strength. "Stop him. Protect what you've built." "How?" "William's files, hidden in the old house. Under the basement stairs, there's a safe. Combination is Caroline's death date." Her breathing grew labored. "Everything's there. Enough to bury Marcus and anyone who stands with him." "Why didn't William use it?" "Insurance he never cashed. Too afraid of mutually assured destruction. But you've already destroyed the old Morrison Construction. You've got nothing left to lose." The machines began alarming. Nurses rushed in, pushing me aside. But Margaret held my gaze until the end, something like peace finally settling on her face. Sarah returned as they pronounced time of death. We stood together, adopted daughter and biological daughter, united in grief for a woman who'd failed us both, but tried for redemption at the end. "She loved you," Sarah said quietly. In her twisted way, she loved us both. "I know," I said. "It just wasn't enough." The funeral was small. William in custody supervision, the Fosters offering support, Morrison Construction employees who remembered Margaret from better days. Sarah spoke beautifully about complicated love and imperfect mothers. I spoke about redemption and the courage to change even at the end. That night I went to the old house with David and Patricia. In the basement, exactly where Margaret had said we found the safe. Inside evidence that would reshape Seattle's political landscape. Senator Marcus, 3 judges, a dozen business leaders. All documented, all dirty. "This is dynamite," David said, reviewing the files. "Properly presented, this could clean out the last of the old corruption network." "Then let's present it properly," I said. 6 weeks later, Senator Marcus was arrested on federal corruption charges. The hostile takeover attempt collapsed as his backers fled association with scandal. Morrison Construction's employee ownership was safe, protected by law and public support. The wedding was held in grandfather's garden on a perfect September day. Sarah was my maid of honor, her own redemption journey continuing daily. Patricia officiated, having gotten ordained just for the occasion. The Fosters walked me down the aisle, Caroline's parents giving me away as their own would have. Morrison Construction employees filled the seats, my chosen family, celebrating love arising from ashes. Anthony, now 3, carried the rings with serious determination. "Do you Lucy Foster Morrison take this man?" Patricia asked. "I do. I said, looking at David, who'd stood by me through revelation and rebuilding. Do you, David Kim, take this woman, every complicated, courageous piece of her, he said, making me laugh through tears. As we kissed, sealing our commitment, I felt Caroline's presence. Not ghostly or mystical, just the quiet certainty that somewhere, somehow, she knew her daughter had not just survived, but thrived. The reception was held at Morrison Construction, transformed with lights and flowers. Speeches ranged from hilarious James McCready describing my first day attempting construction work to heartfelt Sarah, thanking me for forgiveness she still didn't feel she deserved. But it was Dorothy Foster who captured the heart of it all. Caroline would be so proud, she said, raising her champagne, not just of what Lucy's accomplished, but of how she's done it, with integrity, with compassion, with the courage to transform pain into purpose. To Lucy and David, may your love be as strong as your convictions. As the evening wound down, I found myself on the roof overlooking Seattle. The city sparkled below, cleaned of some corruption, still fighting to be better, like all of us. No regrets, David asked, joining me. None, I said. Every painful revelation, every hard choice, every moment of doubt led here. To this life, this purpose, this family I chose and who chose me. And William's warning, the shadows he mentioned, will always exist, but shadows only have power in darkness. We'll keep shining light, keep choosing transparency, keep proving honest business is good business. Speaking of business, David smiled. Patricia asked me to give you this, tomorrow's headline. The business section preview. Morrison Construction announces nationwide expansion of employee ownership model. 50 companies commit to transformation. 50 companies, I breathed. Thousands of workers. Caroline's legacy, David said. A mother's love that refused to die, growing into a movement that changes lives. I thought of that scared 22-year-old who'd fought for her daughter, of the 3-year-old who'd lost everything, of the 28-year-old who'd overheard her disinheritance. Each version of those women had contributed to this moment. You know what I want? I asked. What's that? To be boring for a while. No revelations, no takeover attempts, no deathbed confessions. Just building things, living life, being married to you. He laughed. I give it a week before something dramatic happens. He was wrong. We got 2 whole weeks of normalcy before the next crisis. But that's another story, one of growth, rather than survival, of expanding light, rather than fighting darkness. For now, on my wedding night, surrounded by chosen family and earned joy, I was simply Lucy Kim, wife, sister, aunt, leader, survivor. Daughter of Caroline Foster, who'd loved me more than life. Daughter of William and Margaret Morrison, who'd failed me into strength. Creator of my own story, finally fully free. And that, I told the room full of Harvard business students, is how Morrison Construction became the flagship of the employee ownership movement. Hands shot up with questions. They always did when I told the complete story, but my co-presenter fielded them with practiced ease. The transformation wasn't just about business structure, Sarah explained. It was about recognizing that every person in an organization has value beyond their job title. When you give people real ownership, not just of shares, but of decisions of purpose, of future, they give back tenfold. She'd become our most powerful advocate, her journey from federal prison to foundation president, resonating with audiences who'd written their own lives off. Mrs. Kim, one student asked, do you ever reconcile with the idea that your adoptive parents were criminals? I reconcile with the fact that good people can do terrible things, and terrible people can raise good children, I answered. My parents taught me through negative example exactly who I didn't want to be. In a way, their failures shaped my values as much as my grandfather's virtues. What about Margaret Morrison's warning? Another asked. The ongoing threats. There will always be those who profit from corruption, I said. Our job is to make honesty more profitable. Every company that adopts employee ownership, every business that chooses transparency, every worker who gains real equity, they're all bulwarks against the shadows. After the lecture, Sarah and I walked through Harvard's campus. Anthony, now 8, ran ahead, while my own daughter, Caroline Patricia Kim, toddled beside us. "Think Mom and Dad would recognize us?" Sarah asked suddenly. "I think they'd be shocked that the daughters they tried to destroy ended up saving each other," I said. "That their legacy became exactly opposite of what they intended." "Grandfather would recognize us," she said. "He saw this potential all along." We reached the memorial garden Harvard had created for Caroline Foster, funded by her foundation. A simple stone bench bore the inscription, "A mother's love echoes through generations." Dorothy Foster sat there with her great-grandchildren telling stories about the grandmother they'd never meet, but whose sacrifice shaped their world. "Ready to head home?" David asked, joining us with Brandon and Patricia. Our strange, beautiful family assembled once more. "Almost," I said. "Just one more minute." I touched the memorial plaque, thinking of the journey from that kitchen door to this moment. Morrison Construction now operated in 12 states. The employee ownership movement had spread internationally. The Caroline Foster Foundation had sent 300 kids to college. All because a young mother refused to give up her daughter. Because employees stood together against greed. Because sometimes the greatest revenge against those who'd hurt you is to build something beautiful from the wreckage they left behind. "Thank you," I whispered to Caroline's memory, "for loving me enough to fight, for giving me the chance to make it all mean something." A warm breeze stirred the garden, rustling papers in Dorothy's hands. Stories of Caroline kept alive through telling. Stories of transformation spreading through business schools. Stories of family redefined by choice rather than blood. "Now I'm ready," I said, gathering my daughter into my arms. "Let's go home." As we walked toward the parking lot, Anthony asked the question children always ask. "Aunt Lucy, will you tell us the story again about how you saved everyone?" "I didn't save everyone," I corrected gently. "We all saved each other. That's what family does. Real family." Sarah added, "The kind you choose." "The kind that chooses you back," Patricia finished. And as we loaded into our cars to return to Seattle, to Morrison Construction, to the lives we'd built on the foundations of truth and transparency, I knew Caroline's sacrifice had been honored in the best possible way. Not through revenge or riches, but through redemption. Through proving that love, real love, the kind that sacrifices and serves and stands firm, really can conquer all. Even death, even decades of lies, even the deepest betrayals. Love wins if you're brave enough to let it. And we were. Finally, fully, freely we were. What would you have done in Lucy's position? Would you have fought to save the company and protect the employees, even if it meant destroying your own family? Have you ever had to choose between loyalty to family and doing what's right? Please share your thoughts in the comments below. Your stories and perspectives matter to us. If this story moved you, please like this video and subscribe to our channel for more powerful narratives of transformation and triumph. Share it with someone who needs to hear that it's never too late to break free from toxic patterns and build something better. Remember, you are not defined by where you come from, but by the choices you make and the love you share. Stay strong, keep building, and never forget. Sometimes the family that chooses you is worth more than the one you're born into. Until next time, this is Lucy's Story, signing off with love and hope for your own journey.